Story 1. I quit my job to raise my stepdaughter and loved her like my own. Then, she publicly announced at her party that my husband was cheating on me for months and she supported them. I 40F met my husband, James, 42M, when his daughter, Ellie, was 7 years old. Her mother had passed away when she was 5, and James was struggling to balance his job as a construction supervisor with raising a young child. When we first met at a mutual friend's housewarming party, he seemed exhausted but devoted to his daughter. Ellie was clinging to his leg the entire evening, shy around the crowd of adults. I offered her some of the dessert I had brought, and she slowly opened up. After that initial meeting, James asked for my number. Our first date was at a family-friendly restaurant where Ellie could come along. I remember thinking how unusual it was to have a child on a first date, but now I understand James was testing how I would interact with his daughter. When I immediately connected with Ellie, he seemed relieved. She was quiet but smart, loved to draw, and clearly needed a mother figure in her life. Over the next few months, we went on more family dates than romantic ones. James would invite me to Ellie's school plays, soccer games, and even parent-teacher conferences. I didn't mind. I had always wanted children, and Ellie's serious little face would light up whenever she saw me in the audience. 6 months after we started dating, James asked me to move in with them. Their house was modest but homey. I left my apartment and my job as a middle school English teacher to help raise Ellie. The school where I taught was an hour away from James's house, and the commute would have been impossible while caring for a young child. Instead, I found part-time work, which paid less but gave me flexibility to be there for Ellie. James worked long hours as a construction supervisor, often leaving before dawn and returning after Ellie's bedtime. I was the one who packed Ellie's lunches with little notes tucked inside, helped with multiplication tables and spelling tests, attended parent-teacher conferences, and nursed her through stomach flu and ear infections. I taught her how to braid her hair and how to stand up to the girls who were mean to her at school. When Ellie was 8, she started calling me Mom instead of my first name. The first time it happened, I froze, unsure how James would react, but he just smiled and later told me he was glad Ellie had found someone to fill that role. James and I got married when Ellie was 9. We had a small ceremony in our backyard with just family and close friends. Ellie was our flower girl and told everyone at the wedding that she was getting a real mom now. My parents, who had been skeptical about me marrying a man with a child, finally warmed up to James after seeing how happy the three of us were together. For 15 years, I dedicated myself to our family. I never tried to replace her biological mother. We visited her grave every year on her birthday, and I encouraged Ellie to keep a journal of things she would want to tell her mom if she were still here. On Ellie's 18th birthday, I compiled these journal entries into a bound book as a gift, along with photos of her growing up that I thought her mother would have wanted to see. When Ellie was applying to colleges, I was the one who drove her to campus tours, helped her edit application essays, and stayed up late researching scholarship opportunities. James attended some tours when his work schedule allowed, but the day-to-day effort of helping her prepare for her future fell to me. I didn't mind. I was proud of the young woman she was becoming and felt fulfilled in my role as her mother. The day Ellie received her college acceptance letters, James took us all out to dinner to celebrate. He made a toast to Ellie's bright future and thanked me for being the best mother Ellie could have asked for. I cried happy tears that night, believing we had successfully built a loving family despite the challenges. When Ellie decided to take a gap year after her second year of college to find herself, James was initially disappointed, but I supported her decision. I helped her find a part-time job at a local store and encouraged her to use her free time to explore interests she hadn't had time for during school. She started painting again, something she had loved as a child but abandoned in high school when academics became more demanding. Last month was Ellie's 22nd birthday. We planned a big dinner at an expensive Italian restaurant downtown that Ellie had always wanted to try. I made reservations weeks in advance to get the private dining room with the best view of the city. James insisted on inviting some of his coworkers, which seemed odd since this was a family celebration, but I didn't question it. I thought perhaps he was proud and wanted to show off our accomplished daughter. I spent weeks planning the event, ordering a custom cake with an edible image of Ellie's favorite childhood photo, and buying Ellie a silver bracelet engraved with her birth date and a small message. To my daughter, with love forever. I wrapped it in her favorite color paper and tucked a card inside with a long message about how proud I was of the woman she had become. The day of the dinner, I picked up the cake, got my hair done, and wore the blue dress Ellie had helped me pick out during our last shopping trip together. I arrived at the restaurant early to make sure everything was perfect. The table decorations, the reserved seating arrangement, the special dessert menu I had coordinated with the chef. James and Ellie arrived together since he had picked her up from her friend's apartment where she had been getting ready. Ellie hugged me briefly but seemed distracted, checking her phone repeatedly. James was similarly distant, glancing at the door every few minutes as guests began to arrive. About 20 people attended, including my sister and her husband, some of Ellie's friends from high school and college, and several co-workers of James the first hadn't met before. One woman in particular, Laura, 35F, arrived late and made a noticeable entrance. She was wearing a form-fitting red dress and immediately scanned the room until her eyes found James. She seemed especially comfortable around him from the moment she arrived, laughing loudly at all his jokes and touching his arm several times during conversation. I noticed this but dismissed it as friendly workplace behavior, though I did wonder why I had never heard her name before if they were close colleagues. During dinner, I was seated at one end of the long table with my sister, while James sat at the other end with Laura beside him and Ellie across from them. This seating arrangement hadn't been what I planned. I had expected our family to sit together, but James had rearranged people as they arrived, claiming it would facilitate better conversation. Throughout the meal, I tried to engage with guests around me, but I kept noticing the conversation between James, Laura, and Ellie. They were sharing inside jokes and laughing in a way that made me feel oddly excluded at my own daughter's birthday celebration. After the main course, the server brought out the custom cake I had ordered. I stood up to say a few words about Ellie, reminiscing about the day I first met her and expressing how proud I was of the kind, intelligent young woman she had become. James checked his watch during my short speech, and Ellie smiled politely but seemed uncomfortable. After I sat down, Ellie stood up to make a speech of her own. She thanked her friends for coming, then thanked her father for always supporting her financially and letting her follow her dreams. I waited for her to acknowledge my role in her life. She looked directly at Laura and said, "And I want to thank Laura for making my dad happy these past 8 months. It's been so nice seeing him smile again." The table went completely silent. James's face turned red, and Laura looked down at her plate with a small, satisfied smile. I looked around, confused, then back at Ellie, who continued, "I know it's been hard keeping your relationship secret, but I'm glad we don't have to pretend anymore. Laura has been like a friend to me, and I'm happy Dad has found someone who really understands him." Several guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats. My sister reached for my hand under the table and squeezed it hard. I stared at James, who finally looked at me but couldn't hold my gaze. Laura reached over and squeezed his hand publicly, then raised her wine glass toward Ellie. "Thanks." In that moment, I understood that my husband had been having an affair with this woman for 8 months, and my stepdaughter, the child I had raised and loved for 15 years, had known about it the entire time. Not only had she kept their secret, but she had chosen this public moment, a celebration I had carefully planned, to expose me to this humiliation. Without saying a word, I stood up, grabbed my purse, and walked out of the restaurant. I could hear murmurs behind me and someone calling my name, but I didn't look back. Outside, I realized I was shaking. I fumbled for my car keys as footsteps approached behind me. James called my name as he jogged across the parking lot. When he caught up to me, he grabbed my arm to stop me from getting into my car. "Let me explain. This isn't how I wanted you to find out," he said. "How long?" I asked, pulling my arm away from him. "It doesn't matter," he said, running a hand through his hair. "Things between us haven't been right for years. You must have felt it too." 8 months, according to our daughter," I said. "Our daughter who you turned against me." James tried to explain that his relationship with Laura just happened after they worked closely on a project. He claimed they hadn't planned to fall in love, but that he had been unhappy for years and didn't know how to tell me. He said Laura understood him in ways I never had, and that Ellie had accepted their relationship because she saw how happy Laura made him. I was going to tell you after Ellie's birthday, he said. I never wanted you to find out like this. I asked him if the past 15 years had meant anything to him. He looked away and said, You've been a good stepmother to Ellie, and I'll always be grateful for that. But Laura and we connect on a different level. She's more aligned with my goals for the future. I got into my car and drove to my sister's house that night, the gift for Ellie still in the trunk. My sister came home an hour later, bringing my coat that I had left at the restaurant and reporting that most guests had left immediately after my departure, leaving an awkward celebration that quickly dissolved. The next day, I returned home while James was at work. I packed my essential belongings: clothes, personal documents, family photos, and a few sentimental items I couldn't bear to leave behind. I noticed that some of Laura's things were already in our bedroom. I left my wedding ring on the kitchen counter with a note saying I would be filing for divorce. I didn't mention Ellie in the note. I couldn't find words to express the depth of that particular betrayal. Over the next few weeks, I stayed with my sister while finding a new apartment and meeting with a divorce lawyer. I took a leave of absence from my part-time position, unable to focus on lesson plans and student needs while my own life was in shambles. My sister helped me search for affordable apartments, and I eventually found a one-bedroom unit in a different part of town, away from the neighborhood where I might run into James or Ellie. James called and texted constantly during those weeks, alternating between apologizing for how I found out and blaming me for being emotionally unavailable during our marriage. He claimed I had been too focused on Ellie and not enough on him, that I had stopped being the woman he married, that I didn't support his career ambitions. With each message, his tone grew more accusatory, as if his affair had been my fault. I didn't respond to most of his messages, only communicating through my lawyer about practical matters related to our shared finances and the house. After a particularly nasty voicemail where he called me cold and unforgiving, I finally blocked his number. Ellie also called several times, leaving voicemails saying she was sorry but that she was just trying to support her father's happiness. In one message, she explained that Laura had confided in her first about the attraction to James, making Ellie feel special and included in an adult secret. Later messages turned defensive, with Ellie saying she didn't understand why I was overreacting, and claiming that these things happen in families all the time. I didn't respond to any of her messages, unable to reconcile the daughter I raised with the young woman who had betrayed me so publicly. 3 weeks after moving out, I received a text from an unknown number. It was Ellie, texting from a friend's phone. I need to talk to you urgently, please. It's important. Against my better judgment and my sister's advice, I agreed to meet her at a small diner near my new apartment the following day. When I arrived at the diner, I barely recognized her. Her usually neat appearance was disheveled. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her clothes were wrinkled. Her hair was unwashed and hastily pulled back, and dark circles shadowed her eyes. She was nervously shredding a paper napkin, and she burst into tears when she saw me. I sat down across from her, maintaining an emotional distance despite her obvious distress. The waitress came by, and I ordered a coffee I didn't want, just to give Ellie time to compose herself. When the waitress left, Ellie wiped her eyes with the torn napkin and began speaking rapidly between sobs. Ellie explained that Laura had moved into our house just days after I left. She had claimed the master bedroom, replaced family photos with her own artwork, and started redecorating the living room without consulting either James or Ellie. 2 weeks later, during a dinner where Ellie was already feeling uncomfortable in what used to be her family home, Laura announced she was pregnant with James's child. According to Ellie, James had seemed shocked by the news but quickly recovered, toasting to their new beginning. After Laura went to bed that night, James had called Ellie into his home office. He told her that she needed to move out of her bedroom because they wanted to convert it into a nursery. He suggested she could take the small guest room in the basement if she wanted to stay. When Ellie protested, pointing out that the basement room had no proper windows and she had lived in her room since childhood, James told her she was an adult now and needed to support their new family. He reminded her that she had been supportive of his relationship with Laura from the beginning and questioned why she was suddenly being difficult. He said I was being selfish, Ellie told me. He said Laura needs less stress during her pregnancy, and my attitude was creating a toxic environment. Ellie had moved her essential belongings to a friend's apartment the next day, expecting it to be temporary while she found her own place. But her part-time retail job didn't provide enough income for an apartment in our expensive city, and she had missed too many shifts during this crisis. When she returned to work, her manager informed her that she had been replaced. Now she had no income, no permanent place to stay, and her friend's patience was wearing thin after a week of couch surfing. I tried applying for other jobs, Ellie said, but I keep breaking down during interviews. I can't focus. I can't sleep. I don't know what to do. I sat there listening to her story in disbelief, watching the tears stream down the face of the child I had raised, the young woman who now looked completely lost. After she finished speaking, I asked, "Did you know about their affair the entire time?" Ellie nodded slowly, then looked down at the table. "Laura told me first," she admitted. "She came to the store where I worked about 8 months ago. She bought me lunch and told me she and Dad had feelings for each other. She said she wanted my blessing before things got serious." Ellie went on to explain how Laura had cultivated a friendship with her, taking her shopping and buying her expensive gifts that James never could have afforded on his salary alone. Laura had told Ellie that soon they would be a real family, and that I was holding her father back from true happiness. According to Laura, James had settled for me because he needed help raising Ellie, but now that Ellie was grown, he deserved a chance at true love. She made it sound romantic, Ellie said quietly, like Dad had sacrificed his happiness for years and finally deserved something for himself. Ellie admitted she had helped them coordinate their meetings, sometimes lying to me about James's whereabouts when he was actually with Laura. She had deleted suspicious text messages from James's phone when he left it unattended and had once distracted me with a manufactured crisis about a college assignment so James could meet Laura for a weekend away. "Laura said you would understand eventually," Ellie added. "She said most modern families go through transitions like this and we would all be friends someday." I took a deep breath and reminded Ellie of everything I had sacrificed for her. My career as a full-time teacher, my independence, 15 years of my life. I pointed out that I had attended every school event while James missed most of them for work. I had taught her to drive, spending hours in parking lots and on quiet streets while James claimed he didn't have the patience for it. Ellie sobbed harder with each example, nodding in acknowledgement of these shared memories. "And how did you repay that devotion?" I continued. "You lied to my face for 8 months. You helped your father deceive me. You sat in our home, eating meals I cooked, accepting gifts I bought, all while knowing that the two people I loved most in the world were betraying me." I told Ellie that her betrayal hurt more than James's because I never expected her to be loyal to me over her biological father. I had always told her that blood connections were important and sacred, but I had treated her as my own daughter, pouring all the maternal love I had into raising her, and she had treated me as disposable, a placeholder to be discarded when no longer needed. Then I stood up, paid for my untouched coffee, and told Ellie that she had made her choice 8 months ago when she decided to help her father cheat. I would not be helping her now. "But where am I supposed to go?" Ellie asked, her voice rising in panic. "I have nowhere to live, no job. Dad won't take my calls anymore, and Laura has changed the locks on the house. I tried to get my remaining things yesterday, and they wouldn't let me in." "That's not my problem," I replied. "You're an adult, Ellie. Figure it out." Ellie called after me as I walked out of the diner, crying that she had made a mistake and that James had manipulated her. She said Laura had promised they would all live together happily, that she didn't realize he would abandon her too once she was no longer useful to their narrative. "Please," she sobbed as I reached the door. "You're the only mother I've ever really known." I paused with my hand on the door handle. I saw not the young woman who had betrayed me but the 7-year-old girl who had once clung to my leg during thunderstorms. Then I remembered her face as she thanked Laura at the birthday dinner, and I pushed the door open without looking back. That night, I blocked Ellie's number and all her social media accounts. I also blocked the numbers of mutual people who might try to contact me on her behalf. I changed my email address and informed my workplace that I wasn't accepting personal visitors. 2 days later, my sister told me that Ellie had posted on social media about being homeless and betrayed by her family. The post included vague references to mistakes and regrets but portrayed her as the victim of circumstances beyond her control. Several relatives have since called me, saying I'm being too harsh and that Ellie is still young and made a mistake. They say I raised her for 15 years and shouldn't abandon her now, regardless of what she did. Part of me feels terrible about Ellie's situation. She's young, and her father clearly manipulated her with the help of his mistress. I know how persuasive James can be when he wants something and how easily he can make others feel they're at fault when they oppose him. I witnessed this pattern throughout our marriage but always made excuses for him. But another part of me cannot forgive her active participation in destroying my marriage and our family. She didn't just keep their secret. She facilitated their affair, running interference and creating alibis. She watched me continue to love and care for her, knowing I was being deceived, and then she publicly humiliated me on her birthday in front of friends and family with what seemed like no remorse until the situation backfired on her. My sister thinks I should at least help Ellie find a place to stay or loan her money for a security deposit. She says that despite everything, I'm still the closest thing to a mother that Ellie has. But I don't think I can face her again without remembering her betrayal. So, I ask, am I the jerk for refusing to help my stepdaughter after she helped my husband cheat on me and is now facing the consequences of her actions? Edit. Thank you all for your responses. To clarify some points people have asked about. 1. Yes, I legally adopted Ellie when she was 11, so I am technically her adoptive mother, not just her stepmother. 2. Ellie is currently taking a gap year from college. She has student loans and a small scholarship but was planning to work to save money for next year's expenses. 3. James and I do not have any biological children together. I couldn't have children due to medical issues discovered after we married. 4. The house is in both our names, but I left because I couldn't stand to be there with the memories. My lawyer is handling the division of assets. 5. Several people asked about Ellie's grandparents. James's parents passed away years ago, and his former in-laws, Ellie's maternal grandparents, moved to another country after their daughter died and have limited contact with the family. Update 1. It's been a week since I posted. My lawyer informed me that James wants to keep the house because Laura is pregnant, and he offered me a smaller settlement than what I'm entitled to. I refused his offer. Meanwhile, I learned from a mutual friend that Ellie is now staying with one of James's relatives who reached out to her after seeing her social media posts. Update 2. 2 weeks after my original post, yesterday I received a handwritten letter from Ellie. She didn't ask for money or a place to stay. Instead, she wrote a detailed account of how Laura had gradually worked her way into their lives, buying Ellie gifts and acting like a friend, while constantly pointing out my supposed flaws as a wife and mother. Ellie wrote that she now realizes Laura targeted her as a way to get to James, and that she deeply regrets betraying me. She ended the letter by saying she doesn't expect forgiveness but wanted me to know she understands the magnitude of her mistake. I haven't responded to the letter yet. I'm still processing everything and focusing on finalizing my divorce. My lawyer says James is now offering a more reasonable settlement since I haven't backed down. Update 3. It's been a month since my original post. The divorce proceedings are moving forward. James finally agreed to a fair division of assets after my lawyer threatened to subpoena Laura for a deposition. As for Ellie, I finally called her last week after receiving a second letter. We met for lunch. Ellie apologized again and acknowledged that she can't undo the damage she caused. She's found a small apartment with a roommate and is starting a new job next week. She didn't ask me for financial help again. I told Ellie I need more time before I can consider rebuilding any kind of relationship with her. The trust we had is completely shattered, and I'm not sure if it can be repaired. However, I did give her contact information for a therapist who might help her process everything that happened. Several people have asked if I regret walking away that night at the restaurant without confronting James and Laura publicly. I don't. Maintaining my dignity was more important than creating a scene. The fact that their new happy family, fell apart so quickly shows that relationships built on lies rarely last. Thank you to everyone who shared their thoughts and advice. I'm still healing, but I'm also moving forward with my life. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Before we start, if you're enjoying this video so far, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Now let's continue. I came home early from work to find my husband's work wife living in our house and my son calling her mommy. I found out they used his family trust fund to buy a secret house together. I've been married to my husband for 8 years, and for most of that time, I thought we had a stable and happy life. We have a 6-year-old son who means the world to me. I work as a pediatric nurse at a major hospital in our city, which means I have long hours, especially on weekends. My husband is a corporate lawyer at a prestigious firm, and his job also keeps him busy. I figured we were just like any other couple, juggling the responsibilities of work, parenting, and marriage. I was wrong. 3 weeks ago, my entire life was turned upside down. It started on a Saturday when I was scheduled to work a 12-hour shift. Due to some staffing changes, I was released early, which was a rare treat. I didn't tell my husband I'd be home early, thinking I'd surprise him and our son. Lately, my little boy had been asking for more mommy time, and I was excited to spend the extra hours with him. When I pulled into the driveway around 2 p.m., I noticed an unfamiliar car parked in front of our house. I didn't think much of it at first. My husband sometimes had colleagues over for work, even on weekends. But as I walked up to the door, I heard laughter, a woman's laughter mixed with my son's giggles. My heart sank, but I tried to push the feeling away, telling myself it was probably nothing. I opened the door, and what I saw made my stomach drop. There was a woman, probably in her early 30s, sitting on the floor with my son. They were surrounded by his toys, and she was wearing my apron like she had been cooking. My husband was sitting on the couch, looking relaxed, as if this was a normal Saturday afternoon for them. But it wasn't normal, not for me. My son ran over to me, but instead of his usual mommy, he said something that hit me like a punch to the gut. "Look, real mommy is teaching me how to build a robot." He was talking about this woman, this stranger, as if she was his mother. I stood there in shock, my mind racing to catch up with what was happening. My husband jumped up, clearly caught off guard by my arrival. He stammered something about how Sarah, yes, Sarah, his so-called work wife, was staying with us temporarily because of issues with her apartment. He mentioned water damage and insurance problems, but I wasn't really listening. All I could focus on was the scene in front of me. My son, who I loved more than anything, was acting like this woman was part of our family. Then I saw the suitcases. They were half hidden behind the couch, but I could see enough to know what was going on. These weren't suitcases packed for a short stay. They were unpacked with clothes spilling out, women's clothes, Sarah's clothes. She wasn't just visiting. She was living in my home. I felt like I was in a fog. I don't even remember what I said next, but I know I walked upstairs to our bedroom, grabbed a suitcase, and started packing my things. My husband followed me, trying to explain, but his words barely registered. He kept saying I was overreacting, that Sarah's situation was temporary, but nothing made sense to me anymore. How long had this been going on? How long had this woman been in my house pretending to be my son's mother? What my husband didn't know was that 2 weeks earlier, I had already found something suspicious. I was looking for some tax documents in his office when I stumbled upon a folder filled with papers he had clearly been hiding. There were bank statements showing regular transfers to an unknown account dating back almost a year. There were also documents about a property purchase I knew nothing about. But the worst part was the emails between him and Sarah discussing their future plans. I had taken pictures of everything, planning to confront him after my shift that weekend. I never expected to find her in my house when I came home early. I packed my son's things while my husband stood there, trying to convince me I was being irrational. But I had already made up my mind. I was done. I couldn't stay in a home where my husband had been living a double life, and I certainly wasn't going to let my son be a part of it either. My son was confused, crying as I got him into the car. He kept asking why we couldn't stay with real mommy longer, and each word felt like a knife in my heart. How had this happened? How had my husband allowed this woman to become so close to our son that he didn't even know who his real mother was anymore? I didn't go far at first. Instead of heading to the hotel like I had planned, I drove to my mother-in-law's house. She and I had always had a good relationship, and I needed someone to talk to. I also knew that she had gone through something similar with my husband's father years ago. When I arrived at her house, I broke down and showed her the documents I had found. I showed her the bank statements, the property purchase agreement, and the emails between my husband and Sarah. Her face went from shock to anger as she looked through the papers. Then she told me something that made everything worse. The property my husband had bought with Sarah wasn't just any property. It had been purchased using money from his trust fund, a trust fund that had been set up for our family, with strict conditions about how the money could be used. The betrayal hit me like a ton of bricks. Not only had my husband been cheating on me with his work wife, but he had used money meant for our family to build a life with her. My mother-in-law was furious, and I could see the pain in her eyes as she realized what her son had done. The next few days were a blur. I checked into a hotel with my son, paying in cash so my husband couldn't track us. I contacted a divorce attorney recommended by a colleague, someone who was known for handling high-profile cases discreetly. I also filed for emergency custody of my son, documenting everything I had discovered. How my husband and Sarah had encouraged my son to call her real mommy, the financial deception, and the emotional manipulation that had been going on behind my back. As the days passed, the messages from my husband and his friends started flooding in. They were all saying the same thing: that I was being unfair, that I was overreacting, that I shouldn't take our son away from his father just because of a mistake. Some of them even accused me of trying to turn my mother-in-law against him, using her to get what I wanted. But none of them understood what I had been through. None of them knew what it felt like to come home and find another woman living in your house, playing mother to your child, and most probably a wife to your own husband. I know I'm not wrong. I know that as a mother, I have to protect my son from people who would manipulate him, from a father who has shown he cares more about his affair than his family. But sometimes, because of all the pressure, I question myself. Am I being too harsh? Am I really doing the right thing by keeping my son away from his father? I don't know the answer, and maybe I never will. All I know is that I have to fight for my son, for his future, and for my own sanity. But I can't help but wonder, am I wrong for taking this stand? Should I have given my husband another chance? Should I have let him explain? But how can I forgive someone who has shattered the trust we built over 8 years? How can I stay in a marriage where I'm not even sure who my husband is anymore? Update 1. The fallout from my visit to my mother-in-law happened faster than I ever imagined. I thought it would take some time, but she didn't waste a single minute. After I handed her those documents, she went straight to the trust fund administrators, showing them the proof of what my husband had done. For some of you asking about this, basically, as much as I know, the trust fund wasn't something he could spend however he wanted. It had strict rules about how it could be used. It was supposed to be for family obligations, like making sure our son had everything he needed. But using that money to buy a house with his affair partner? That crossed a major line. As soon as the administrators saw the documents, they froze the entire trust fund. Every penny was locked up until they could investigate further. And because of some legal requirements, my husband's law firm had to be informed too. This opened up a whole new problem. He and Sarah had been working together for a while, but they never told HR about their relationship, which was against company policy. Since they were having an affair and working in the same office, it raised a lot of questions about conflicts of interest. The firm started its own investigation, and I could tell from the way things were going that my husband's career was now hanging by a thread. On my end, my attorney moved fast. Within days of filing for emergency custody, I was granted a temporary order that gave me primary custody of our son. The judge was very concerned about the situation, especially when I showed them evidence of how Sarah and my husband had encouraged my son to call her real mommy. The judge said that was a clear sign of parental alienation, and given my son's age, it was a huge issue. It was obvious to the court that my son was being manipulated, and that weighed heavily in my favor. Meanwhile, my husband was calling and texting nonstop. He was all over the place. One minute he was furious, accusing me of blowing things out of proportion, and the next he was begging for me to come home and fix everything. He kept saying Sarah was just a friend helping him out because she had problems with her apartment. He claimed that buying the property together was purely a business deal, nothing more. But I had seen the bank transfers, the documents, and the emails. They weren't just investing in a property. They were planning a future together, one that clearly didn't include me. As if that wasn't enough, friends and family started reaching out to me too. I was flooded with calls and messages from people telling me how upset my husband was about being away from our son. They said he was heartbroken, missing his little boy, and that he was falling into a deep depression because of the separation. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized something strange. He never mentioned our son in any of his calls or messages to me. Not once. All of his texts were focused on himself, on how he felt, on how unfair it was to him. He didn't say anything about missing bedtime stories or playing with our son in the mornings. It was like he was more concerned about how things affected him than what this whole mess was doing to our child. It was painful to come to terms with that. I had spent years trusting him, thinking he was always doing what was best for our family. I had been so busy working long shifts and taking care of everything at home that I didn't see the signs. And now, I couldn't help but feel like he had checked out of our marriage long before I ever realized it. He had been slowly creating a life without me, making plans behind my back and involving our son in those plans without my knowledge. The investigation into the trust fund kept moving forward, and from what my lawyer told me, it didn't look good for my husband. If it was proven that he had misused the money, he could face serious legal consequences. The trust wasn't just some casual fund he could dip into whenever he wanted. It had very specific rules about how the money could be spent. It was meant to be used for family obligations, and buying a house with his affair partner was definitely not on that list. My mother-in-law was furious when she found out, not just because of the money, but because of how he had lied to all of us. She had been in a similar situation with my husband's father years ago, and I think seeing her son follow in those footsteps hurt her deeply. Things at his law firm weren't going well either. The internal investigation uncovered their relationship, and because they hadn't told HR, it was a big deal. His job was now on the line, and from what I was hearing, he was on indefinite leave while they figured out what to do. His career, which he had worked so hard for, was now in jeopardy because of his own choices. Despite everything, there were moments when I wondered if I was doing the right thing. Was it really fair to keep my son away from his father, even after all that had happened? There were moments when I saw my son's face light up during the supervised visits with his dad, and it tugged at my heart. They still had a bond, and no matter how much I wanted to protect my son from the hurt and confusion of this whole situation, I couldn't deny that my husband was still his father. Watching them together, even in those short, monitored visits, made me question if I was being too harsh. Was I punishing my husband in a way that would also end up hurting my son? But then I would remember everything my husband had done. All the lies, all the deceit, and how he had tried to replace me in our son's life. That's when the doubt would fade away, and I would feel more confident in my decision. As much as my husband and his friends tried to make me feel guilty, I knew deep down that I wasn't wrong for wanting to protect my child. I wasn't the one who had destroyed our family. It was still hard not to feel the pressure from everyone around me. My husband started telling people that I was turning his own mother against him and that I was making it impossible for him to rebuild his relationship with our son. He tried to spin the story, painting himself as the victim, and I could tell some people were starting to buy into it. They thought I was being too cold, too unforgiving, and that maybe I should just let things go for the sake of our child. But every time I started to doubt myself, I would think about my son and what kind of example I wanted to set for him. I wanted him to know that it was okay to stand up for yourself, that it was okay to demand respect, even from the people you love the most. So, while my husband continued to spiral, losing his grip on both his career and his finances, I focused on what mattered. Keeping my son safe and giving him the stability he needed during this chaotic time. I wasn't going to let my husband's bad decisions drag us down any further. Update 2. The situation at my husband's firm has gotten much worse. What began as an investigation into his relationship with Sarah has turned into something much bigger. More employees started coming forward with stories about my husband and Sarah acting inappropriately at office events. They were not as careful as they thought. People noticed that they were getting too close at work parties and company retreats, and rumors had been going around for a while. The worst part was the accusations of favoritism. Several employees reported that Sarah was being pushed forward for partnership consideration, even though she had much less experience than others. It looked bad, especially since she and my husband never told HR about their relationship, which was against company rules. My husband had a lot of power over case assignments, and it became clear that Sarah was getting the best ones, the kinds that could help her career a lot. Other associates were upset but were quiet about it until the investigation started. Now, both my husband and Sarah have been put on administrative leave while the firm looks into everything. My attorney has been able to get information from HR, which is helping with my case. The firm is worried about legal issues because some client funds were tied to the property my husband and Sarah bought together. The HR department is cooperating fully, providing documents that could be very important for my divorce. They realized that the relationship and the property purchase could get them into serious trouble. On the family front, my mother-in-law has been a surprising source of support. I never thought we would be this close given the situation, but she's been there for me and my son every step of the way. She is angry with my husband for bringing shame to the family after everything she went through with his father years ago. She's doing everything she can to support me. She helps with my son, who is confused and sad. He knows something is wrong, but he doesn't understand the full picture. My son has started seeing a child psychologist who knows a lot about parental alienation. This has been very helpful. The therapist noticed troubling patterns in how my husband and Sarah were influencing my son's feelings about me while I was at work. They were subtly making him think I wasn't around for him and that Sarah was more of a mother figure. It's heartbreaking to think they were doing this. The therapist explained that this could affect my son in the long run if we didn't deal with it quickly. I'm grateful we caught it early and can work to fix his perception of me as his mom. Meanwhile, the trust fund investigation uncovered even more problems. It seems that the property purchase with Sarah was just the start. There were multiple financial issues that violated the trust's rules. My husband made some questionable investments and started undisclosed business ventures with Sarah without telling anyone. The more the trustees looked, the worse it got. Now, they are working to take away his access to the trust fund completely, which would have a big impact on his finances. It's hard to understand how much my husband had kept from me. I thought I knew him well, but each new piece of information showed me how little I actually understood. The fact that he risked our family and his career for this affair is shocking. He has been calling me and texting nonstop, trying to downplay everything. He kept saying I was overreacting and that Sarah was only a close friend. But the evidence is clear, and I don't believe him anymore. I have stopped replying to his messages. There's nothing left to say. He tries to blame me, saying I was too focused on my career and not enough on him. But that's just another excuse. I know his choices are his own, and now he has to deal with what he has done. As for Sarah, I have no idea what she's thinking. I've heard she's been keeping a low profile, hoping that this will blow over, but I doubt it will. Her career is also in jeopardy, and with the investigation looking closely at their finances, she is in trouble too. I can't help but wonder if she regrets being involved with my husband, especially with everything happening, but honestly, I don't care. She knew he was married and that he had a child, and she chose to be a part of this anyway. I don't feel sorry for her. Through all of this, I've learned that people can surprise you, both positively and negatively. I never thought my mother-in-law would become such a great support for me, but she has stepped up in ways I didn't expect. Meanwhile, my husband's friends have reached out, trying to defend him. They tell me he's really upset about being away from our son, but they don't understand that he has done this to himself. They don't know how he's been acting or the evidence I have. My focus now is on my son and healing. I want to ensure he knows I'm his mother, no matter what anyone else says. I've been working hard to keep things stable for him, and I hope that in time, he can see the truth of what's happened. I'm still not sure where all of this will lead us, but I know I need to protect my son and myself from the damage my husband and Sarah have caused. As each day passes, I wonder how this will all play out. I know the road ahead will be tough, but I'm determined to fight for my family and my son's future. At least I have you guys to guide me through this. Smile. Update 3. Everything has truly fallen apart for my husband, and the consequences of his actions are much bigger than even I expected. The law firm officially completed their investigation, and both my husband and Sarah have been fired. What they uncovered was far more than just a personal relationship between them. It turns out that they had been using company resources, including confidential client information, to help with their personal business ventures. This is a massive ethical violation, and the firm wasn't going to take it lightly. It was enough to not only cost them their jobs but also alert the State Bar Association. Now, the Bar Association has launched its own investigation into their actions. This could lead to my husband and Sarah losing their law licenses altogether. It's one thing to lose a job, but losing the ability to practice law could ruin their careers for good. Several clients whose confidential information was compromised have already been notified, and 2 of them are considering filing formal complaints. If they go through with it, my husband and Sarah could be facing serious legal consequences on top of everything else. The situation with the trust fund has also been settled. My husband's access to the trust has been permanently revoked. After the trustees reviewed the evidence, it was clear that he had been violating the conditions of the trust for over a year. He'd been secretly diverting funds and trying to cover his tracks with financial tricks, but it wasn't enough to hide what he'd been doing. The remaining money in the trust will now be held for our son's future, but my husband no longer has any control over it. This means he's lost not only his career but also his financial safety net. I can't imagine what he's feeling right now, but again, these are consequences he brought on himself. As for Sarah, I've heard she's moved out of our house. She's apparently gone back to her apartment, the one that she claimed had water damage. It turns out that was a lie too. Her apartment was never damaged at all. That was just another cover story she and my husband made up so she could stay with us. It's unbelievable how many layers of deception there were. But Sarah's problems are far from over. The firm's investigation also found that she'd been leaking client information to competitors. She might have been trying to secure a job somewhere else before everything came crashing down. Now she's facing legal trouble of her own, and I can't say I feel bad for her. My son has been doing better lately. He's still seeing the child psychologist regularly, and the therapy is helping him understand that what happened wasn't his fault. The psychologist has been working with him to reverse the emotional damage caused by my husband and Sarah. They've been trying to make him think of Sarah as his real mommy, but now he's starting to realize that wasn't right. It's been slow progress, but he's back to calling me mommy again. It broke my heart to hear him struggle with that, but I'm glad he's starting to heal. He still has nightmares sometimes, and he's developed separation anxiety, but I'm hopeful that with time he'll recover fully. On the legal side, the divorce is moving faster than I expected. My attorney has been amazing. She's confident that I'll get primary custody, especially with all the documentation we have about parental alienation and my husband's lies. The financial part of the divorce will be more complicated, though. With the trust fund situation and the mess at his job, there are a lot of moving parts. But my attorney is making sure that my son's future will be secure. No matter what happens to my husband financially, I want to make sure my son is protected from any fallout from this disaster. My mother-in-law has been a rock through all of this. I never expected us to become so close, especially given how things started between us, but she's been on my side every step of the way. She's even helping me look for a new house in a better school district for my son. She told me that she doesn't want to see history repeat itself, referring to her own experience with infidelity. She's using her own personal funds to help me make a fresh start. I'm so grateful to her. It's been nice to have someone who understands what I'm going through and who wants to help. When I look back, it's hard to believe how much has come from my decision to stop by her house that day. What started as me confronting my husband's betrayal has spiraled into the exposure of years of deceit and professional misconduct. I didn't expect my actions to uncover so many layers of lies, but here we are. It's overwhelming at times, but I'm trying to stay focused on healing and creating a stable life for my son. One of the biggest lessons I've learned from all of this is to trust my instincts. The documents I found were shocking, but in reality, the signs were there long before that. I just didn't want to see them. Now I know better. I'll never ignore my gut feelings again. Going forward, I'm committed to building a life where my son grows up understanding what a healthy relationship looks like. I want him to know that honesty and respect are the most important things in any relationship, and I'm determined to teach him that by example. My husband's final message to me still rings in my ears. You've ruined my life. But I don't see it that way. I didn't ruin anything. He made his own choices. He chose to lie, to cheat, to manipulate. He ruined his own life with every bad decision he made. I'm just the one who brought it all to light. He wants to blame me because it's easier than accepting responsibility. But deep down he knows this is his doing. I still get messages from some of his friends telling me that I should try to work things out for the sake of our son or that I've been too harsh. But I don't believe that for a second. What he did was beyond repair. He didn't just betray me, he betrayed our family. He involved our son in his deception, and that's something I'll never forgive. I'm standing firm in my decision to end this marriage, and I won't let anyone make me feel guilty about it. Now my focus is on the future. I'm ready to leave the past behind and start fresh. I want my son to grow up in a home filled with love, trust, and stability. I can't change what happened, but I can control what happens next, and that's exactly what I plan to do. Now on to the next story. Story 3. A religious girlfriend said she got drunk and had fun with 4 men at her best friend's party after she spent a week crying in bed. But it is much worse than that. My girlfriend, we'll call her Katie, and I met in college and have been together for 4 years. I'm the first person she's ever had a relationship with because her parents were strict in high school. Our parents are religious and don't believe in sex before marriage, and while I don't really care, she's very close with her parents, so we've been waiting. Now that she's graduated, I was planning on proposing within the next few months. I had a ring picked out and everything. I was head over heels for this girl. That all changed last night or last weekend, really. Katie has had a male best friend since high school that her parents never liked because he claimed to be gay. Let's call him Liam. She was excited to be going to the same college as him because it meant they could hang out as much as they wanted. I've never been a big fan of the male best friend thing, but he's gay, so whatever. Except 2 years ago, he came out as bisexual. I never really liked the vibes when he was around her, so I asked Katie to stop hanging out with him alone. She accused me of not being supportive of him and trying to control her, just like her parents. I told her it was her choice if she wanted to keep seeing him alone, but I wouldn't be sticking around for it. It was the biggest problem we'd ever had in our relationship, but we worked through it. The compromise was that Liam and his boyfriend could hang out with me and my girlfriend together as couples, but never alone. I never wanted to cut her off from her friends with this stipulation. However, the 4 of us only got together twice before Liam ended up transferring to a different college. Over the summer, my girlfriend stayed in contact with them over Discord, stayed friends with both of them when they broke up, and formed a gaming server with them and some of their other friends. Most of these friends were men, but she assured me nothing funny was going on. Most of them even had girlfriends, she said. Last weekend was Liam's birthday party, and he invited her. Katie wanted to talk to me about it first to make sure I was okay with it. She said she wanted to go since she hadn't seen him in 2 years, and it was only a 2-hour drive away. A bunch of her friends from the Discord server that she had never met in person before were going to be there, women included, and Liam's girlfriend would be there too. Since I had a weekend trip planned leaving Friday and returning Sunday, I unfortunately wouldn't be able to go with her, but I told Katie I trusted her and had no problems with her going to see her friends. The problem started Saturday night. She texted me in the morning when she was leaving for the party. She texted me when she got there, and she texted me a couple of times throughout checking in. Katie told me that she had planned on driving back around 9 or 10, but it was around that time that the text messages stopped. I assumed she was just having a good time and didn't want to seem controlling, so I didn't bother her. I did stay up to watch her location and make sure she got home, though, and she did around 2 a.m. It was unusual, but I trusted her and didn't want to make any assumptions. I would call her in the morning, and she would explain that she just got carried away having fun with her friends, I thought. I called her Sunday morning, and she didn't answer. She texted back a few minutes later that she had been sleeping, had a hangover, and wasn't feeling well. That was very strange because Katie doesn't drink. I told her to drink lots of water and that I hoped she felt better and got on my flight home. When I arrived at my apartment, I found her curled up in my bed in the dark. She has a key to my apartment but hardly ever needs it because usually I'm with her to do the unlocking. I asked her why she hadn't stayed at her apartment to rest up, but she didn't say anything. Since then, the entire week she has been saying she's not feeling well and has not left my room. She's taken off work, and I've been going home on my lunch breaks to make sure she was eating. I was worried about her, but in the back of my mind, I was also suspicious about what had happened at the party over the weekend. Late last night, Katie woke me up from the couch sobbing. It was the first time she had left my room since I'd gotten home, other than to use the bathroom. I consoled her until she had calmed down enough to be coherent and asked her what was wrong. She told me she had done something horrible. She told me Saturday night she had somehow gotten really drunk by accident, and Liam offered to drive her home. 3 of her friends from the gaming server on Discord got in a second car to follow them to take Liam back home. After they got to Katie's apartment, they helped her up the stairs and into her apartment. Then she said she had sex with them. All of them. All 4 men. Katie said she doesn't remember most of it, that she was really out of it. She said she's been sick ever since, trying to figure out how to tell me because she loves me so much and didn't want to hurt me. Didn't want to hurt me but gave away her virginity that she was supposedly saving for marriage to 4 other men instead of the man who spent the past 4 years caring for her. She said she wanted to tell me right when I got back, which is why I found her in my apartment, but she couldn't bring herself to because she didn't want to lose me. She begged me not to break up with her. I told her I needed some time to myself to think. She then begged me not to make her go back to her apartment. I didn't feel like fighting, so I just told her she could go back into my room. I could hear her crying intermittently all night. I have to admit, I was brought to tears myself. I can't believe how she would throw away our whole relationship, the 4 years we've built together, over one party. I was going to propose soon. I trusted her, and now it's broken. I'm at work, and I haven't been able to focus all day. Part of me wants to tell her to get out the second I get home if she's still there and that I never want to see her again. Part of me wants to talk to her more and see if there's anything left to salvage. I can't tell which side is more unreasonable. How do I navigate this? Update: October 6, 2024. Trigger warnings all over this. Sorry for everyone who didn't get that on my last post. My girlfriend has gone to bed early, and I have nothing better to do, so I'm finally getting a chance to write this. First, something you can skip through to the actual update if you don't care. I think my other post was taken down for being fake. One of the biggest reasons people seemed to think it was fake was because I wasn't spending time in the comments denying every accusation. I hadn't even opened Reddit since I left work to go check on Katie. It wasn't anywhere near my top priority at the time. For some quick and easy debunking, though, one moment he says he has her location, and the next he's surprised she's at his apartment. I checked her location Saturday night solely to make sure she got home okay. After that, I did not check her location because I am not a stalker who tracks her every move. On iPhone, it shows your location in the text messages with that person. So he either hadn't looked at their texts at all between his flight and getting home, or it's made up. Not everyone has an iPhone like you. I do, but my girlfriend doesn't, so we use an app, and no, I don't get notifications from the app because, again, I don't need to be a stalker. The random excessive details, sorry. Like I mentioned, I had been stewing on everything since she told me what happened that night, and I just wanted to get it all out. Those were all the details I had floating around in my head surrounding the situation. The update is full of typos, while the main text is immaculate. OP only wrote the update in the TLDR. My apologies for being a bit of a mess and in a rush after realizing my girlfriend might have been raped. That's my bad. I've gone back and fixed them, by the way. I had no idea my post would get hundreds of more comments after I closed Reddit that would skeptically analyze everything I wrote to the letter. There's absolutely no concern that she's gotten pregnant? No worries about STI. Not at the time, no. I didn't even know if I was going to stay with her. Pregnancy and STIs would have been a concern if I did, but at the point of writing, I believed she had cheated on me and was leaning towards breaking up with her. No worries that she was potentially drugged and raped? Again, not at the time of writing. I was still reeling from what she had told me, that she had sex with 4 men. She didn't say anything about getting drugged or being raped, which was something I would have assumed she'd have mentioned. That was before I read all the comments that she may be in denial herself, which hadn't even occurred to me. So this religious girl who wanted to wait for marriage suddenly wanted a train run on her? Obviously fake. No, as it turns out, she did not want any part of what happened. For everyone who said someone in my position wouldn't have taken the time to write everything out for a post. Well, look at the rest of the subreddit. If people in sticky situations didn't post about them, there wouldn't be any posts on here at all. And to everyone who suggested either it was fake or she must have been a cow for 4 men to carry her up the stairs, you can personally F off. Everything above was a whole load of presumptuous BS, though I do wish everything I wrote wasn't true. For the record, I only wrote all that out so people wouldn't harass me on this post. Here's where you can skip to if none of that pertains to you. After reading all the comments that opened my eyes to what really happened, thank you so much to everyone who helped with this. I left work a little before lunch and immediately went home to check on my girlfriend. She was as I had left her, curled up in bed and crying. The first thing I did was just go hold her after asking for consent. I cried with her. After a while, I gently brought up what happened that night. Did she actually want any of that to happen? A lot was said, but long story short, as many of you suggested, she did not. To clear some things up, these friends that she was with at the party were not just random people she met online. They were personal friends of Liam, who she had been best friends with for 8 years. These friends, while she herself never met them in person, were people she had talked to and gamed with over the past year or so. I would hear her talking with them over the headset, and I never noticed anything strange. She's pretty shy and introverted, so I was happy for her to have friends to play with while she gamed. They weren't all men either. From what she said, there were 4 or 5 women in the server as well. Of the people at the party, 3 of the men and 2 of the women attended. Also, there were Liam's girlfriend, a couple of other friends, and a few of their partners. All in all, there were only around 15 guests, and everyone knew each other for the most part. It was never meant to be a huge thing, just a get-together of Liam's closest friends at his house. Alcohol wasn't even supposed to be a big part of it. At the beginning of the party, a lot of them just gamed together since they hadn't been able to in person for a while. There was no big girl/guy separation, as a lot of people at the party were LGBT+. Some people got in little groups to chat together, just general mingling, etc. About midway through the party, one of the guests poured everyone some mystery shots. Katie rejected it at first. Liam, however, urged her to, for his birthday. When everyone else heard she'd never taken a shot before, they all egged her on too. It was just 1 shot, Liam insisted. It would wear off well before time for her to head home. And if not, she could just wait however much longer until she felt comfortable driving. She felt like she had to. From that point, things got a little less clear. There was more hanging out, there was more alcohol. People, she wasn't sure which ones, kept handing her drinks and insisting. She didn't want to ruin Liam's party, and she knew if nothing else, he would look out for her. She didn't feel right, but Katie said she thought he would have told her if something was wrong, and he kept telling her everything was okay. She remembers feeling really sick. She remembers seeing others passed out on the couch. She remembers Liam saying he wanted to personally take her home, driving her car, to make sure she was okay. He felt bad he had let her get so drunk, he said. She remembers one of her friends from Discord telling Liam he would follow them in his car to take Liam back after, and she remembers 2 more guys from the Discord getting in his car. She remembers Liam giving her a bottle of water in the car to help sober her up. She remembers them carrying her up the stairs to her apartment and laughing. Being brought inside her apartment. I'm not going to describe any further than that. She didn't want any of what happened. Was she naive? Maybe. Did she probably miss some red flags? Make some choices she shouldn't have? Sure. Katie did not deserve that. The fault belongs with the men who did it. She didn't want to file a police report, and I'm not giving her an ultimatum. I've read up a lot on how horrific that can be, and I'm in full support of her decision. Of course, if she ever changes her mind and decides she does want to file a report, I'll be there for her through that too. What we are going to do is see a doctor. Part of the reason Katie says she spent most of this time curled up in bed is that she has been in a lot of pain. She really doesn't want to be poked and prodded at down there, but after some convincing and assurance, she agreed. She's going to be seen on Monday and also going to get pregnancy and STI testing, which we're equally worried about, done while we're there. Over the weekend, we've talked a lot. We've both cried a lot. There's been lots of hugs and comforting when needed. I have opened the curtains in the bedroom so she gets sunlight in there, at least for anyone who was concerned. No, I'm not making her go back to her apartment. For those who suggested it, no. I'm not leaving her before or after her healing to find someone who isn't damaged. And no, I will not be ratting her out to her parents. I'm taking the entirety of next week off to stay home and take care of her, go to as many doctor's appointments as needed, set up therapy, etc. I don't think I can ever make up for leaving her alone the way I did this past week. But I will be there for her through anything and everything that comes next, whatever that may mean. Again, thank you to everyone from my first post who helped me realize what an egocentric dumbass I was being. I hope this update helps everyone who is concerned. Katie isn't okay right now, but hopefully we can get there. Comments where OP has replied. Comment: I read your update and OP, you do what you feel is best. But I want to add something to make sure she thinks about, because as much as I want to say it is about herself, it's not. It's about every woman. These pieces of shit do this too, because Katie was not the first, and she will not be the last. These rape. If she is not willing to do the right thing and file a rape report, then she is willing to let this happen again and again and again. Also, Liam, her friend, you need to go to him and ask him why he left her to be raped. He did this. He allowed it to happen. This falls on his shoulders, and he is either with her or against her. She needs to let her parents know. If she is not willing to do this, then OP, please don't update anymore because you are staying with a cheater. OP, I'm not going to give her an ultimatum. I'm not going to call her a cheater because she doesn't report. Victims have committed suicide after the re-traumatization that comes with reporting and everything that follows. I took the time to look into it deeply. Have you? Or are you making assumptions about what goes on in our justice system when you haven't experienced it yourself? Spoiler alert. Even if she did report, all 4 of them would most likely walk. I'm not making her tell her uber-religious parents just so they can shame her either. Man, none of this is on her. The men who did this are the ones who need to be willing to do the right thing and stop raping. Now on to the next story. Story 4. My boyfriend gave me food I'm allergic to at his sister's wedding, so I broke up with him. But now he's stalking me, proposing in public, and says I'm his true wife. I, F29, met my boyfriend, Michael, M35, at a show I performed in. I am a theater person as a hobby, and he complimented my performance and bought me a drink. We have been together now for a little over a year. His sister got married last week, and I was initially pleased to be asked to be a bridesmaid, but also a bit surprised as she barely knows me. I thought this was an attempt to have an excuse to also get to know each other better. Michael and I got into an argument the week before because he said that he wanted to entertain the thought of spicing up our sex life and having a threesome. He said, since I was bi, why not? I didn't like the idea too much and said so, and it devolved into a petty Cold War. He started to ignore my messages after he left my place. He didn't reply to me at all until the day before the wedding, asking what time he needed to pick me up, since we can't go separately, otherwise people will gossip about us. He barely said anything to me the whole time we traveled to the venue. The wedding was fine, but at the reception, he got me a plate and leaned in to kiss me. But I shied away, and he got up to mingle. I started feeling ill not too long after. 911 was called. I realized I was having an allergic reaction but had my pen. I still had to be carted off by the ambulance. And that's when someone looking for Michael said that he had left with some of the other groomsmen to a bar nearby. I called 6 times and texted that it was an emergency as I was getting checked out by the paramedics, and again when they strongly suggested I go to the hospital, but he never replied. I was released from the hospital and called him to ask him to pick me up, but he didn't pick up. So I woke up my best friend, and she took me home and stayed with me overnight to make sure I was okay. The next morning, Michael called me, but I was still asleep, so he left me a lengthy voicemail, yelling at me that I ruined his sister's wedding, and that I always have to make things about me. He came over to further berate me and told me he should just break up with me at this point, as I am dramatic and this is all too much. So I pointed out that he had gotten my plate, knew full well that I have an allergy to coconut, and that his sister had told me afterwards that he knew that the cake he gave me was the coconut cream cake, as all the food had signs saying what it was and what the ingredients were, as I am not the only person with allergies that attended. He left, telling me that he can't talk to me when I am this way. I was honestly exhausted, so I didn't bother going after him. But his father called me to ask how I was doing, and after I answered, he then told me how I'm hurting Michael's heart by blaming him, and Michael has been inconsolable since we fought. I texted Michael to ask if we could talk, but the conversation went back around somehow to the threesome and how I don't respect him even in intimate settings, or want to hear him out regarding his needs, and make things about me. I am so confused because to me, this feels manipulative, but I respect his father so much. I go to their church and he is a pastor there, so to have him tell me I am in the wrong through me. Edit. A lot of comments are suggesting that this was intentional, and I have actually never considered he gave me something I am allergic to on purpose, and certainly not to use against me to leverage in our argument. But I think I may have to come clean and talk to his parents. I know them well, so hopefully it won't go too badly. Update 1. Michael texted me this morning to apologize. He said the wedding was stressing him out and he had a lot on his mind, so he accidentally handed me the plate he meant for himself, not the one for me. He said he didn't know I was in the hospital and feels bad he wasn't there for me. But he left the reception with some of the groomsmen to blow off much-needed steam. I don't know how I feel about it all, so I just replied, okay. He is now asking to come over and talk this out in person. Edit 2. For any and all of you calling me stupid or implying I am a child and why am I still with this guy, etc., just know you remind me a lot of him and how he used to put me down and bully me, and it's a real wonder of mine if you treat people in your life like he did me. I suspect you do. Glad to be rid of him and indifferent about you. Relevant comments, where OP has replied. Comment 1. OP, be honest, have you, now that you're looking back, seen red flags like this? This behavior likely didn't just show up. Have you ever gotten ill after a disagreement with him? OP. Oddly enough, I am sitting with my BFF, and she asked me the same question, and yes, actually. Our first real argument that I can remember, I was down with a stomach bug for almost a week, and he visited me and made soup. Then, the only big argument I can recall outside this one, he wanted to use labels really soon onto us going on some dates, and I didn't. The next morning, I was sick with chest pains and stomach cramps. I don't want to sound dramatic or accusatory, but since people have commented he might have purposefully given me something I am allergic to, I just don't know anymore. Comment 2. NTA. The two of you are completely incompatible. He wants threesomes. You want to attend wedding receptions without leaving in an ambulance. OP. Okay. When I read this, I was with Bestie and we've been drinking, and the scream I scrumped laughing so hard nearly killed me more effectively than the coconut. LOL. Update 2. June 1st, 2024. Well, many of you were right. I should not have met him in person, but I did. He took me out to lunch, insisting he'd pay for it all, and it was incredibly over the top. He had flowers and a written letter of apology, but as some of you messaged me, his apologies dodged the point by way of, if I hurt you, or that you're feeling X or Y feeling, etc. He quoted some scriptures and said he has repented, as his carelessness caused me harm. I wasn't much moved by any of it until he said how much his family loves me and how much our church roots for us as a couple. I kind of sat back and realized that one flimsy reason I was even entertaining forgiving him and staying was because of the pressure I dealt with as the GF of a pastor's son. It occurred to me that there were so many times I let things slide because he is the pastor's son, so he had the power in the social aspect of our community. Sorry, I know I am rambling, but I'm emotional and tipsy. I remember just staring at him and saying it was incredibly alarming that by now he can't be unaware of my coconut allergy, and that he didn't bother to tell his own GF if he was stepping out with the guys, or even that he was stepping out of his own sister's wedding at all. He then said it was really actually kind of stupid of me to eat a cake that had coconut, and implied I am an idiot for not realizing what I had was coconut. I realized then he would never accept that he was in the wrong, and thus there was no point. I stood up and smiled and said, "You know what? Don't worry about it. Thanks for dinner. Good night." To which he replied that if I wasn't going to grow up and accept his apology, I am a waste of his time. He uses that a lot whenever we disagree, and it usually hurts me deeply. But this time, it was like a Rolodex of memories flooded my brain, and I really suspect he's been deliberately making me sick whenever we disagree to teach me a lesson. I said I was done and he needn't waste his time with me from this point on, and left. I then sent screenshots to his father, explaining the situation as best I can without blaming Michael for prior illnesses without proof. And I got a text about 20 minutes ago from his father. His father is incredibly disappointed in my immaturity and hurt that I wouldn't even give it until Sunday at church, where we can pray together, talk it out, and heal. I felt this way for a while, but I was able to say at this time that using religion as a tool of guilt is low, and I am no longer concerned with his version of God, as that version is a judgmental, cruel, and heartless jerk, while the one I always thought of was loving, compassionate, and kind, and I am done. I was told by him and by further emails rolling in that I am no longer welcome at my church until I reconcile with my true husband and learn compassion and respect for my leaders. So I guess that's it. I will enjoy sleeping in tomorrow and eating coconut-free food while lazing about my home, rather than going to 3 church services starting at 8 a.m., and then figure it all out from there. I don't know how to sign off, but I do watch a concerning amount of Charlotte Dope videos, and she usually ends things with something practical like, do your laundry or something, so I will just say, live for yourself, feed your soul, and know you are enough. I certainly am going to put in the work to get there, and I hope we all make it to the other side contented and filled with love and enjoyment. And by the way, F you, Michael. I know you are reading this. I know you know it's me, and I hope your socks are always just a little soggy. Relevant comments, where OP has replied. Comment. Holy crap, and you stayed with him? You poor girl. No one deserves someone like that in their life. But you didn't say if you told his dad about him sending you to the hospital and potentially killing you, because we both know, and the rest of Reddit knows, that he did that intentionally, and if there was proof of him giving you that cake you could probably send his happy ass to jail. OP. I didn't and don't have the best self-esteem, and here I am the only black woman in the town that I've known of. I've always known that I am considered less desirable. Not saying that's right, but just knowing where I live. Been here since my preteen years. When Michael asked me out, it was like a parade. Everyone acted like it was a Cinderella story and I won a lottery or something. I have a friend who I have been texting today, and she is letting me know how dumb I've been. I never told her of our issues and is about ready to commit crimes, LOL. I think I lost myself for a bit, but I wanted to leave the church low-key for a while because of my treatment, so that helps a bit. Update 3, August 3rd, 2024. It has been a hot minute. I forgot about my posts until I was watching a YouTube video on Reddit stories, and the story reminded me that I never did update. I found a church in my city, a bit more laid back, like we can go to the pub after and have a laugh laid back. I did like it and made amazing friends I am still in touch with, but the going to church idea came from my therapist, and it was to see if I do identify with the church or the ideals of it, and I don't. So now back to being the heathen I am, LOL. My ex quickly moved on, and he had a new GF within a month of us breaking up. Bless that woman, I thought, because isn't she in for a ride? Oddly enough, she reached out to me on my Facebook, and I was curious and opened it. She started with who she is, how long she and ex have been dating, and how long they knew each other, childhood friends, so basically forever. She then said that she feels convicted by the Holy Ghost to seek a resolution between me and ex, and she is worried I may be his true wife, and if I cannot forgive then I am proving I am not, and to let her know as she cannot marry him until I make this clear here. I kid you not. Seeing the screenshots, the chat with my new church buddies, my friends sent vomiting emojis and that this is a cult and not a faith. I concluded they were right and replied with, yeah, marry him if that's what you want. And nothing more. I am getting messages from members of the church, but I don't much care. I've loved my life since leaving. I didn't know life could be so enjoyed. Really? And it makes me wonder how much damage the church had on me. But for now, just for fun, I'm going to an appointment with a friend of a friend's apprentice on tarot readings, LOL. No, that's true, I was asked. No offense to anyone who believes in it, it's just not normally my thing, so I'm curious and interested. Maybe it will be good. I will, update. Update 4. September 6th, 2024. This is really hard to explain. So after my last post, he stayed away for all of a hot second. He kept dropping off gifts and food of all things, at my door. I've ignored them and thrown them out at the end of each week, like all trash. He then waited out front for me, so when I came out to take the trash out, he was sitting right there. I didn't even see him. I was tired and just trying to get chores done. He blocked me from my door and went on a speech about how I'm his true wife and that he cannot marry his GF without my permission. I can't keep track of the mental and theological gymnastics he took, but he basically asked me for a threesome with his current GF to see if we can work out who his true wife is. I bluffed and said that my necklace has a panic button on it and the cops are alerted of him being there, and to go. He sort of stared at me, but it was blank, like he wasn't even human. He went on to say stuff about thinking about me every night before bed and more. I started to gauge just how fast I am compared to him and how quick I would need to run to even wake a neighbor, which one of them would be the quicker to respond, and on and on. I just kept saying no and that the cops would be there, and thank the universe for a random siren. I don't know if that's what convinced him, but he did leave, and he was sort of chuckling and said that I've always been so playful, and called my behavior an act. Took me less than 30 minutes to pack a bag and head to a friend's. I sat in her tub for what felt like a day. It wasn't. When I finally got out, she and I sat down and started making a plan to start moving my things out bit by bit until it's just down to the furniture. I don't give a flying about the furniture. So we implemented the plan. She would drop in, her dad would, her mom would, I would with her brother, and slowly over this time we took everything I really cared to keep from my home. I'm safe and away from there and just ready to wash my hands of the place. He has texted me a few times, assuring me of this plan to pick his wife. So I finally cracked and sent his messages to his parents last week. It's been silent since then until this past Wednesday. There's a bar I like where they have wine Wednesdays, and I went to just relax until I felt a tap on my shoulder. He was there with what looks like a group, and he starts smiling and says, "We need to talk." I loudly tell him to leave me alone, but he just drops to his knees and asks me to marry him. Some people start to clap. A regular who knows me is now at my back, leaning in to ask if I'm okay. I jerk back and tell him to leave me alone. The regular offered to pay my tab so I can leave, and he walked me to my car. Now it's been this game of getting footage, dealing with the police. So far, I'm told this isn't evidence of harassment but a domestic dispute, so I don't know what to do about that. I know that I am done with where I live, but moving now feels like the hardest task in the world. I know I have to. I can't stay here, but now I'm mourning it all. It all feels too big. Now on to the next story. Story 5. Looked down on by my parents. I left to pursue art. When I shared my first project, my mom coldly asked, "When will you get a real job?" I, 25F, have always been the black sheep in my family. Emma, 28F, my older sister, has been the golden child since I can remember. Our parents, particularly our mother, have always favored her over me. It's been this way since we were children, and it's just gotten worse as we've grown up. Growing up, Emma was always the excellent student, the popular girl, and the one who excelled at everything she did. She captained the cheerleading squad, received all A's, and was even voted prom queen. Meanwhile, I struggled in school, had a narrow circle of friends, and preferred to spend time in the art room rather than attending social activities. Our parents never missed an opportunity to compare us. "Why can't you be more like Emma?" was a remark I heard far too frequently. They'd constantly praise her successes while scarcely mentioning mine. When I got a B on an exam, they'd wonder why it wasn't an A. When Emma received an A, they would throw a celebratory supper. This tendency persisted into our adult life. Emma attended an Ivy League college on scholarship, whereas I attended a state school to study art. Our parents were happy with Emma's choice but wary of mine. They continuously questioned my decision, asking if I was confident I could earn a living as an artist. I remember the day I told them about my college decision. We were sitting at the dinner table, and I had spent weeks working up the guts to announce my choice. When I eventually told them, my father's face plummeted, and my mother looked like she was going to cry. Emma, of course, chipped in, Are you sure that's a good idea? Art school isn't exactly known for job security. My parents agreed, and I felt my hopes crumble in front of my eyes. Despite their displeasure, I persisted with my decision. Those 4 years of college were among the best of my life. I finally felt like I belonged, surrounded by people who understood and valued creativity. I excelled in my academics, making the dean's list multiple times. However, when I shared these accomplishments with my family, they were met with lukewarm reception. "That's nice, dear," my mother would remark, immediately shifting the conversation to Emma's latest accomplishment. Emma secured a high-paying position at a famous law firm in the city following graduation. In contrast, I had difficulty finding my foothold. I worked several part-time jobs while attempting to establish myself as a freelance illustrator. Our parents were always interested in hearing about Emma's newest case or advancement, but when I mentioned my creative efforts, they shifted the subject. I recall a very unpleasant family meal around 6 months after graduation. Emma was visiting from the city, and our parents had cooked her favorite dish. The entire talk concentrated upon her recent court victory. My mother continued emphasizing how proud she was, and my father could not stop smiling. When I tried to tell my mom about a tiny drawing I had gotten for a local magazine, she interrupted me mid-sentence to ask Emma about her intentions to buy an apartment. The situation at home had become terrible. I was still living with our parents to save money, but the continual comparisons and subtle criticism were having a negative impact on my mental health. Emma had her own apartment in the city, paid for by our parents. Every time she came, it felt like a royal arrival. Our parents would spend days getting ready, cleaning the house, and cooking her favorite foods. When she walked in, everyone greeted her with embraces and joyful talk. In contrast, my presence was frequently treated as an afterthought. I attempted to tell them how I felt multiple times, but it never went well. They'd accuse me of jealousy over Emma's achievement or say I was overly sensitive. "We just want what's best for you," they'd say, which always sounded like, "We want you to be more like Emma." My entire life was impacted by the continuous comparisons. I began to question my decisions, abilities, and even my worth as a person. I couldn't get out of bed some days because I was overcome with emotions of inadequacy and failure. I began to retreat from my friends, feeling humiliated by my lack of achievement in comparison to my sister. Their criticism extended to my romantic relationships as well. My parents were unimpressed when I brought home my first serious boyfriend in college, who was also an art student. They spent the entire dinner questioning him about his future prospects and making thinly veiled remarks about the volatility of artistic careers. Meanwhile, when Emma returned home with her boyfriend, a law student from an affluent family, my parents almost pulled out the red carpet. Things came to a head last week. I had finally secured a large illustration commission for a children's book series. It wasn't a large salary, but it was a step in the right direction for me professionally. I was looking forward to sharing the news with my family at supper. As usual, the discourse focused on Emma's most recent accomplishments. She had recently won a major case at work and was being considered for a promotion. Our parents could not stop talking about how proud they were. When there was a lull in the discourse, I seized the opportunity. I told them about my illustration project, trying not to become too excited. My mother's response, "That's nice, dear, but don't you think it's time you got a real job? You're not getting any younger, you know?" My father only nodded in agreement. I was crushed. I tried to explain that this was a legitimate position that may lead to other opportunities in the future, but they wouldn't listen. Emma stepped in, suggesting she could definitely find me an entry-level work at her law firm if I wanted a steady job. That was the final straw. I rose up, my chair grinding loudly on the floor. I told them I was weary of being regarded like a disappointment and that I was proud of my work and decisions. I said I couldn't live in a home where I was continuously made to feel inferior. My parents looked stunned. My mother began to say something about how I was being unduly sensitive, but I interrupted her. I informed them that I was moving out, that I'd rather struggle on my own than deal with their incessant criticism. Emma tried to be a peacemaker by advising me to calm down and not make rash judgments, but I could see a smug expression in her eyes. She was loving it, being the ideal daughter while I was the family disappointment. I stormed up to my room and began packing. My parents and Emma followed, attempting to talk me out of it, but their comments only reaffirmed what I already knew. They considered me a failure and a burden. My mother even had the audacity to remark, "If you leave now, don't expect us to help you when you can't make rent." As I stuffed items into a suitcase, memories flooded my head. When I won a local art competition in high school, my parents didn't attend the award ceremony since it coincided with one of Emma's debating competitions. The numerous times they introduced Emma as our daughter, the lawyer, and me as simply our other daughter. They looked disappointed when I picked art school over the business program they wanted me to attend. That night, I fled with whatever I could put into my car. As I drove away, I noticed my parents and Emma standing in the doorway. My mother was crying, my father appeared angry, and Emma only looked smug. I felt a variety of feelings, including sadness, rage, and fear. There was also an odd sensation of relief. I'm currently staying with a friend while I decide my future move. I knew leaving was a bold step, but I couldn't handle it anymore. Am I overreacting? Should I have stayed and attempted to help them understand? Or was quitting the correct decision? I feel lost and alone, but also relieved to be free of that harmful surroundings. The prospect of creating a life on my own terms is both thrilling and terrifying. I'm concerned about my financial situation, but I'm also excited to pursue my art without the constant criticism and comparisons. Any advice or help would be greatly appreciated. How do I proceed from here? How can I create a life for myself while dealing with the emotional consequences of leaving my family? And most importantly, how can I start believing in myself after years of being told I'm not good enough? Update 1. It's been over 2 months since I left my parents' house, and a lot has happened. I wanted to give you all an update and thank you for your encouragement and ideas. Your warm words and encouragement have become a lifeline during this difficult time. After I departed, I spent a week sleeping on a friend's couch while I searched for a more permanent option. It was difficult, but I was able to find a little studio apartment that I could just barely afford with my savings and the proceeds from my illustration project. It's not much, but it is mine, and for the first time in my life, I believe I have my own space. The first several weeks were difficult. I pushed myself into my work, determined to show to myself, and perhaps to my family, that I could succeed on my own. I took on a part-time job at a neighborhood coffee shop to augment my income from illustration employment. Between the two jobs, I was working virtually constantly, but it felt fantastic to be self-sustaining. There were times when I came home fatigued, my hands aching from hours of drawing and pouring lattes, and I wondered if I had made the right decision. The small voice in my head, which sounded eerily like my mother, would tell me that I was dumb for believing I could make it as an artist. But then I'd look at the illustrations I was working on and recall why I'd chosen this path. My parents tried to contact me multiple times, but I was not ready to speak with them. I needed time to comprehend things and focus on getting on my own 2 feet. Their voicemails ranged from violent demands that I return home to emotional pleas wondering whether I was all right. It was difficult to ignore them, but I knew I needed time to think things out for myself. Emma also called several times, always in the same patronizing tone, telling me I was acting childishly and that I should come home and apologize. Her words wounded, but they also fueled my will to succeed on my own terms. About a month after I departed, something unexpected occurred. The children's book I illustrated was released, and it began to gain traction. The author shared it on social media, and it piqued the interest of a few prominent parenting bloggers. Suddenly, I began receiving emails from publishers interested in my work. I recall sitting in my tiny apartment, staring at my computer screen in disbelief as the emails arrived. For the first time, I felt as if my dreams were more than just that. I sobbed that night, but they were tears of happiness and relief. I got 2 additional book deals in quick succession. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to allow me to leave my coffee shop job and pursue illustration full-time. For the first time, I felt as though my career was taking off. This newfound achievement provided a lift in confidence. I began to believe in myself and my abilities in a manner I had never done before. I learned I didn't need my family's approval to legitimize my decisions or my worth. Emma unexpectedly arrived at my residence about this time. She stated she was concerned about me and that our parents were furious. I invited her in, more out of courtesy than anything else. At first, she was genuinely interested in how I was doing. She looked about my small apartment and inquired about my job. I showed her the published book and informed her of the new projects. For a brief time, I wondered whether she now saw me as an equal. But then she started using the same old rhetoric. She stated that while it was good that I had some success, it was not a steady career. She mentioned how scared our parents were and how they only wanted what was best for me. She also mentioned again that she could find me a position at her law firm. As she spoke, I felt a familiar sense of inadequacy seeping in. Something was different this time, though. I felt a sense of accomplishment as I looked at my work on my desk and considered the emails from publishers in my inbox. I lost my patience. I told her everything was good and that I was happier than I had ever been. I pointed out that, for the first time, I was fully reliant on my own efforts, with no assistance from our parents. I questioned if she could say the same, given that our parents were still paying for her apartment. Emma's face transformed. The veneer of concern fell away, revealing the same arrogant, superior grin I had seen the night I left. She snapped at me, calling me ungrateful and selfish. She told me that I was breaking our parents' hearts and should be ashamed of myself. I asked her to go. As she was leaving, she turned and said, "Don't come crying to us if this little art phase of yours fails. We won't be there to bail you out." After she went, I felt both terrified and strangely empowered. I realized I no longer needed their approval. I was succeeding on my own, doing what I like, and that was enough. The interaction with Emma prompted me to think on our friendship over the years. I remembered how close we were as kids, before competition and comparisons drove us away. I felt a twinge of grief for the sisterhood we had lost. However, I knew that I couldn't keep holding on to that romanticized vision of our relationship. In the weeks that followed, I refocused on my work. I began connecting with other painters and illustrators, forming a network of like-minded creatives. For the first time, I felt as if I belonged to a group that understood and valued me. I also began therapy to work through the years of emotional baggage I had been carrying. It's been difficult, but it's helped me realize my worth beyond my family's expectations or my professional achievement. I'm still not ready to speak with my parents, but I feel stronger now. I'm focusing on my work and creating a life that makes me happy. It isn't always easy, but it's worthwhile. There are still days when I doubt myself and miss my family, despite everything. But then I look at what I've accomplished in 2 months on my own, and I'm proud. I'm learning to be my own cheerleader, celebrating my accomplishments without the need for affirmation from others. Thank you again for your support. It means more than you realize. To anyone else going through similar difficulties, please know that you are not alone. It is acceptable to pick yourself, pursue your interests, and define success on your own terms. Update 2. It's been about a year since my previous update, and I can't believe how much has changed. I'd want to convey what has happened and thank you all again for your ongoing support during this trip. My illustration career has taken off. The children's book series on which I worked proved to be fairly successful, and I've subsequently illustrated several more volumes. I've recently started accepting commissions for magazine covers and a few advertising campaigns. It has been a lot of effort, but I am enjoying every minute of it. About 6 months ago, I moved into a bigger apartment. It's still not large, but it has enough room for a real art studio. Being able to divide my work and residential rooms has greatly improved my productivity and mental health. The day I moved in, standing in the midst of my studio surrounded by blank canvases and the scent of fresh paint, I felt a sense of success and possibilities that I had never known. My confidence has increased alongside my career. I've been asked to talk at a few local schools about jobs in illustration, and I've even begun mentoring a few young artists. It feels weird to be able to inspire people when not long ago I was questioning my own decisions. Now on to the familial drama. A few months after my last post, my mother phoned me unexpectedly. She cried and asked if we could meet. I was skeptical but eventually agreed to meet her for coffee. My therapist had been encouraging me to set boundaries and concentrate on rebuilding my connection with my family. so I saw this as a chance to begin the process. When we met, she appeared fatigued and angry. She began by apologizing for the way they had treated me. She stated that after I departed, they had plenty of time to think on their behavior. She admitted that they had treated me unfairly and regretted constantly comparing me to Emma. Her words were exactly what I had hoped to hear for years, but I felt conflicted. Part of me wanted to accept her apology and run into her arms like a small kid. Another part of me was skeptical, wondering whether this was again another attempt to force me to conform to their expectations. She then revealed a bombshell. Emma was sacked from her position at the legal firm. Apparently, she was misrepresenting her billable hours and overcharging customers. The company found out and fired her right away. I was shocked. The golden child, the ideal daughter, had fallen from grace. I felt a range of feelings, including surprise, perverse delight, and weirdly, concern for my sister. But that was not all. Emma had been living way beyond her means, relying on our parents to cover her expenses. When she lost her employment, she struggled to meet her costs. She had accumulated a large amount of credit card debt and was facing eviction from her residence. My parents tried to help her, but the situation was severe. They had already exhausted a large chunk of their savings attempting to keep Emma afloat. My mother broke down as she told me this, stating they felt deceived and had no idea what to do. As I listened to my mother, I realized how much pressure Emma must have felt all these years, always needing to be flawless, always trying to meet our parents' expectations. In a way, I felt bad for her. My mother asked if I would consider coming home for dinner to discuss matters as a family. I felt conflicted, but I consented. I felt emotionally stronger and more capable of dealing with it now. The family supper was strained. Emma was there, and she didn't look like the polished, confident lady I recalled. She was protective and angry, lashing out at everybody. She claimed that our parents did not provide adequate support for her and that I had abandoned the family. I remained cool and stood firm. I informed them about my accomplishments, how I had established a job and a life for myself without their assistance. Our parents listened with expressions of pride and remorse on their faces. Emma rushed out midway through dinner. My parents were devastated when she departed. They apologized again for how they had treated me and expressed their pride in my accomplishments. They asked if I'd consider returning home. I told them that while I appreciated their apology, I was not interested in returning. I had created a life for myself and was content with it. However, I expressed my willingness to improve on our relationship and spend more time together. Since then, things have progressed positively. My parents and I now chat on a daily basis, and they have even paid me a visit in my new apartment. They inquire about my job and are genuinely interested. It's unusual to have them genuinely listen to me and be proud of my accomplishments. Emma, on the other hand, has cut off communication with all of us. Last I heard, she had relocated to another place to start afresh. I've tried contacting her several times, but she has not responded. I hope she's doing well and can discover her own path, free of the strain of being the perfect child. The entire experience has taught me a lot. I've learned about family relationships, self-worth, and the value of pursuing your own path. I've understood that success isn't about meeting others' expectations, but about being true to yourself and doing what makes you happy. I've also learned the importance of forgiving. It has not been easy, but I am working on forgiving my parents and Emma, not for their sakes, but for my own peace of mind. I've discovered that harboring hatred and resentment only harms me in the long run. My relationship with my parents is still in progress. Sometimes old tendencies emerge, and I have to remind them and myself that things have changed. However, we are making progress in the right way. They are beginning to respect me for who I am rather than who they wanted me to be. What about my career? Continues to thrive. I was just requested to illustrate a comic novel, which is a dream come true. I'm also thinking about teaching a course at a nearby community college, sharing my knowledge and experiences with those who are interested in art. Looking back over the last year, I'm shocked at how much has changed. There were times when I questioned myself, wondering if I'd made the correct decision in leaving. However, I now see it was the smartest decision I could have done. It forced me to stand on my own 2 feet and believe in myself when no one else would. Stay strong if you're dealing with comparable familial troubles. Stand up for yourself. Follow your passions. Also, don't let someone make you feel less than you are. You never know how things will turn out. Success and happiness can take many shapes, and the path to achieving them isn't always the one chosen for you. Family dynamics can be complex, and healing takes time. Be patient with yourself and others. Set limits as needed, but be willing to reconcile if it feels right. Most importantly, remember this. You are valuable, regardless of your family's approval or anyone else's expectations. I'm grateful for this community and the encouragement you've given me during this journey. Your encouragement has meant more than you realize. Thank you for being there for me during the difficult times and for celebrating my wins alongside me. I'm looking forward to what the future holds. I feel like I'm finally living life on my own terms, pursuing my passions, and developing important relationships. It isn't always easy, but it's genuine and rewarding in a manner I've never felt before. Thank you all again for your unwavering support throughout this journey. Now on to the next story. Story 6. My mom constantly warns my daughter will become obese, but she's actually underweight and it's wearing me down. So, like it says in the title, I have a daughter, Leah, who is 5. She's strong and healthy, but slightly underweight for her height. She's been this way since she was a toddler. She seems to take after her dad, who is also very tall and thin. Leah eats plenty of healthy food and gets lots of activity, and we see her pediatrician regularly. He has told us that her weight is not an issue as long as she continues to eat well. The problem is my mother, who is convinced my daughter is going to become obese. While I serve healthy food most of the time, I do occasionally let my daughter have McDonald's for lunch or ice cream after dinner. Every time I do this when my mother is around, she makes dire comments about how Leah is going to get fat. If Leah mentions she had a hot dog for dinner, my mom says something about the childhood obesity epidemic. If she sees me giving Leah a cookie, she shakes her head and says something about how Leah seems to be packing on the pounds. To her credit, she never says these things in front of Leah, but around me, she never stops. The thing is, I am overweight and have been since I was a kid, not obese but definitely heavier than I should be. Although there are a lot of reasons for this, and I know that the responsibility for my health is ultimately mine alone, I think my mother's unhealthy attitudes toward food have played a large part in my weight problems. She would tell me I was disgusting and needed to lose weight, then turn around and give me a cupcake if I had a bad day at school. Food was the enemy but also my main source of consolation. This led to me becoming an emotional eater, a problem I still struggle with today. I have gone to therapy and made major changes in my lifestyle to become a good role model for my daughter, and I am losing my excess weight. I talk regularly with Leah about nutrition and exercise, but I refuse to place the same value judgments on food and weight that my mother did. I have told my mother repeatedly that Leah is healthy and is not in danger of becoming obese, and that I want her to stop making comments, but she can't seem to help herself. I have warned her that if she starts making them in front of Leah, I will cut her off in a heartbeat. But Leah loves her grandma, and I would hate to end their relationship over something that is really only bothering me. Can anyone think of a way to get my mom to lay off? Update 1. Okay, you've all convinced me that I need to put my foot down with my mom and tell her that her comments need to stop entirely, or she won't see me and Leah anymore. I'm supposed to see her tomorrow, so I'll post an update after. Thanks, Reddit. I really needed to be smacked in the face with reality, and you did it in an admirably gentle way. TLDR. My mom constantly tells me my perfectly healthy daughter is going to become obese. I'm sick of hearing it, but don't know how to get her to stop. Comment. Maybe a trial run where your daughter does not see your mother for an extended period of time? 2 weeks or something. In the meantime, tell your mother how you feel and let that sink in for her. Right now, it's concerning comments made to you. Eventually, it will be private conversations between Leah and her grandmother. OP. Oh, that is my main concern. I have told her point blank that if I ever hear her mentioning Leah's weight or eating habits to Leah, I will not hesitate to cut off contact. I will not have my daughter raised with the same eating issues I had. I do think she will respect this because she loves Leah, only grandchild, and knows I am serious about this. OP when asked if there's any truth to the mother's comments. It's a fair question, but yes, I'm sure there isn't any truth to the comments. Leah's doctor was the one who characterized her as a little underweight at her last checkup. She was in the 95th percentile for height, but down around the 40th percentile for weight. If a kid with those stats is considered overweight, I'd hate to see a kid they considered to be at a healthy weight. Update 2. Thanks for all the responses you gave me on my first post. I think I needed a dose of reality, and that's what I got. After reading all the comments, I realized I needed to talk to my mom. So when she came over, before she had a chance to say anything about Leah's eating habits, I took her aside and said, "Enough. Leah is healthy and happy, and your weight comments are inappropriate. They stress me out and they're bad for Leah. If you keep making them, we're just not going to see you anymore." She sputtered a bit, but ultimately agreed to my terms. I was hopeful that maybe she would actually stop making the comments so we could have a somewhat normal relationship and she could continue to see Leah. Haha. I work a part-time schedule of 2 days per week and every other weekend. This was my working weekend, so my husband was home with Leah. When I got home after work on Sunday, I could tell something was up. Leah was already in bed, and my husband looked really tense. He's usually a pretty laid-back guy, so this was weird. When I asked what was up, he said we needed to talk about my mother. I had told him that I had spoken with her and that she had been warned not to make any more comments about Leah's weight. Well, apparently she just couldn't do it because she called him, knowing I was at work that day, and told him that I was blind to Leah's problem and that he needed to get involved because I had confided in her that Leah's pediatrician told me she was at serious risk of obesity and type 2 diabetes and that we needed to change her diet so she would lose weight. What? For the record, Leah's pediatrician has never said anything like that. In fact, as I mentioned in my last post, he has told me that she is underweight. Fortunately, my husband attends all Leah's doctor appointments, and B, has the sense to realize that a rail-thin child isn't edging toward obesity. So he knew it was bunk. He told my mom that she wasn't to call again until she heard from me. Well, I was livid. It was like after years and years of weight-related crap from my mom, something finally snapped. I called her, and the minute she said hello, I just lit into her. I told her that based on her behavior, she was either delusional or a manipulative sociopath, and that either way, she wasn't allowed around me or my kid again. I told her she was not welcome to call, email, come over, or send cards. Basically, we were going to pretend like she didn't exist. I hung up before she had a chance to get a word in edgewise. She called 15 times that night. I finally blocked her number on my cell and my husband's. We don't have a landline, so this means she can't call us at all. I had 3 emails in my inbox the next morning, which I deleted without reading before blocking her email address as well. Finally, we had given her a key to our house for emergency purposes, so first thing yesterday, I had the locks changed. Then I took Leah out for the day. Lo and behold, when we came home, my neighbor said that my mom, she recognizes her because she used to come over a lot, had been banging on the door for almost half an hour earlier that day before storming off in a huff. I can only imagine how angry she was when she realized her key didn't work anymore. I feel better than I have in years, which makes me think I did the right thing. The only thing I'm still struggling with is how to break the news to Leah. She really does love Grandma. My husband and I are going to sit down with her tonight, so I guess I have until then to figure out what to say. TLDR. Confronted Mom, who was even crazier than I expected. Comment. It sure didn't take long for her to not only not make comments but to escalate it to Op's husband with lies that are easily shot down. She must be really delusional, which will most likely mean she won't back down to the no contact easily. OP. This is what concerns me. If she has any grip on reality at all, she would realize that my husband wouldn't believe her lies either. She's actually lost it, or she's playing some kind of game by saying that to him. Comment. I'm curious. What is her own relationship with food? Is she overweight? OP. She's not. But she definitely doesn't have a good relationship with food. She counts every calorie and tries a lot of fad diets to keep her weight down. Her attitude, which I think she got from her own mom, is almost like weight is a moral issue. Being overweight isn't just unhealthy, it means you're a bad person. Now on to the next story. Story 7. After 12 years together and 4 years of marriage, my husband wants to try polyamory after falling for someone else. Hi, I've been married to my hubby for 4 years, and we've been together for 12 years. After a lot of financial struggle, we bought a house, and we are now planning to have kids. A few months ago, my husband felt sick and had to stay home for a while. He decided to pick up an online game and started having weekly sessions with a group of players. Among them is a girl, 30 I think, and long story short, he fell in love with her. He broke down crying a month ago and admitted it. He told me it built up so gradually he didn't understand how he felt until it was too late. They started texting privately after meeting and eventually had one-on-one calls together. Then, at some point, he said she told him she was in love with him, and he realized it was mutual. He said he told her it was impossible but loved her too. They tried to be just friends, but they couldn't resist and continued to show affection for each other. He showed me the texts but also ventured into sexting. She asked if she could meet him face to face, but he refused. So he told me all of this, apologized over and over again, and told me he couldn't control himself. He said while he loved us both, it was me he would choose no matter what. I was still very upset and slept at a friend's that night to gather my thoughts. I decided to forgive him because he clearly felt guilt and wanted to work it out. I told him that while I was deeply hurt, I still appreciated him coming forward to me and being honest about what happened. We got into long conversations about how we were feeling in our relationship. I accepted he could love someone else but said I didn't like how he handled it. He agreed. And then yesterday he asked if I was comfortable opening up the marriage to polyamory. He said he still wanted to live with me and have kids but can't erase nor ignore the feelings he has for her. He says he wants to do it right and let us both see other people with clear boundaries and communication and still be present for one another. I'm going to be honest, it made me very uncomfortable at first. We have several friends who are poly. I know more or less how it works, but I never really thought about getting into it myself. I am not against it, it just never crossed my mind before. I am trying to think it through, but it's a lot to take in. Sorry, my writing is probably messy, but it's kind of hard to focus. I guess it's too early to decide, and we have a lot more to discuss beforehand. But still, could you guys give me your opinions on this? Thanks a lot. Top comments. Comment 1. I'd be divorcing so fast. Comment 2. So he cheated and now wants to be able to keep cheating by calling it poly? Lol. Come on. Do not have kids with this man for the love of God. And if you have any self-respect, you'll be serving him divorce papers as soon as possible. Sorry, your husband is a cheating ass. Comment 3. You got married under the assumption you would remain monogamous. He is trying to fundamentally change the nature of your relationship. If I were you, I would drop any attempts at conceiving and figure out your next steps. Personally, I would not stay with someone who desired an open relationship. You need to decide if it's something you're willing to entertain or not. Update 1. First off, sorry I didn't reply to all your comments. I am very thankful for them. They helped me realize hard but fair truths about the whole situation. I waited for a bit to think about it all and had multiple long discussions with my husband. I wanted to confront him before making a final decision. To answer some of your questions. The other girl wanted to meet him, but they never did. Partly because my husband refused, but honestly, mostly because she lives too far from here. I still got checked for STDs though, and I'm clean, yay. As for our polyamory friends, they apparently were the ones who suggested he go down the polyamory road. I stopped talking to them for now. I'll deal with the bigger problem first. I told him his actions hurt me deeply and that while I appreciated him admitting his affair, it was still infidelity. I told him what you guys said. That turning it into polyamory was merely greenlighting the affair after the fact, that polyamory should be built on mutual trust and communication, which he already broke, and that I didn't feel respected. It destroyed him. He said he already knew deep down but didn't want to admit it, neither to me nor to himself. We both screamed and cried a lot. He finally admitted he wanted to open the marriage for selfish reasons. He is very sorry. He cut off contact with the other girl, let me fully access his computer and phone, and now wants to go to counseling to repair our relationship and marriage. He has shown me a lot of affection and attention since then, although he admits himself it's sometimes out of guilt and not just out of pure love. And now I want to make it work too, but am I? Or is it a sunk cost fallacy? I don't know. Our first session is in 2 months, the earliest we could get, and every day I change my mind. Literally yesterday, I wanted to leave him, while today I think it's worth giving it a try because we've known each other for so long. We understand each other on a very deep level, share a lot of interests, and have already built so much together. He was there for me during hard parts of my life. He took responsibility for his actions and is really trying. Plus, if I leave him, I'd have to start my life nearly from scratch. Find a new place to live, go back into dating for the first time in 12 years. I don't want to lose everything. Sounds very hard and scary. Am I not too old for this? But at the same time, that's a form of denial, isn't it? It doesn't matter if those years were good. It's not going to be the same even if he gains my trust back. Even if I forgive him, I'll never forget. I think he is genuinely remorseful, but isn't it too late for that? Am I too empathetic? Him being present now doesn't erase what was done. Do I want to stay not because I still believe in this relationship, but because I don't have the strength to ask for a divorce because it's the easy choice, some kind of codependency? I have no idea. I can picture both paths clearly, and it's tearing me apart. I am lost. Maybe even more than I was when I wrote my previous post. I've lost sleep and appetite, and I'm not sure I enjoy anything in my life anymore. I booked an appointment with a psychologist for me alone, to help with this whole thing. I am sorry, at this point I am rambling. I know I am the only one who can decide what's okay and comfortable for me or not. It's ultimately my choice and my choice only. The emotional hell I'm going through just makes thinking about that choice very hard and paralyzing. I'll go to both therapies and try to see what to do from here. I'll try to update, but it's probably going to take a while. I am sorry, I want to thank you again for your support, and I am sending you guys a lot of love. Edit. A couple of infos I should have mentioned but didn't, because putting all of that into writing without omitting something is much harder than I thought. He cut off contact with her because once he told her he was married and wanted us both, she just ran away and broke up with him. There are times since then where my husband starts feeling sad or angry because of what's basically withdrawal, and for that, he's at least sensible enough not to blame me. What kind of marriage did we have before this crisis? It will sound so naive. It's my first and only romantic relationship. We were very close and basically grew as adults together. We could talk about anything and understand each other. We shared the same values and interests. What changed? I think we got into a routine, and he got bored. During our argument, he said he was addicted to the attention the girl was giving him and that he felt I didn't show him I was in love with him enough anymore. I told him that even if it was true, he should have told me instead of having an affair. On one hand, I have my faults too, and I could accept this as one of them. On the other, I was taking care of him in the house while he was sick. I don't think he believes it. I don't think he means it, but it makes me wonder whether I was actually a good wife for him, even though I am not responsible for his actions. Thanks again for your support, y'all. It's a lot to process, but it helps me so much. Relevant comments. Comment 1. If she and her husband have kids and plans on getting counseling. OP, kids are off the table if we do go into counseling, and it goes exceptionally well, maybe we'll talk about it. But for now, the distrust is already there. He says, I love you, but I never know whether it's to regain my trust, whether he means it or not. Even if he does he love me or is it a lie he tells himself? Comment 2. If you choose to stay, don't be surprised if in a year you find him talking to someone again. Cheaters are sneaky. They'll show remorse and swear they've changed. Meanwhile, they're smirking inside because they've started a new affair and think they can get away with it this time. OP. Thank you. It's obvious and well known. Once a cheater, always a cheater. But reading it helps me fight denial. I really need to break up with him, if not for myself, just to show him that actions have consequences. Update 2. TLDR, we are divorcing. Hooray. Emotional affair, manipulation, self-harm threats, psychological abuse. Hey, I hope you're doing well. So, my soon-to-be ex-husband had an emotional affair online and tried to make me greenlight it by asking for an open marriage where we'd be allowed to have side adventures. I refused, and his affair partner dumped him. He begged me to try to reconcile with him, to which I agreed while I was actually trying to prepare my exit. We both went to individual therapy, Still am. We separated temporarily 3 times, but every time I came back, it went terribly. He was desperate. He kept trying to cross my boundaries, love bombing me, playing the victim, asking to touch me even though I established I didn't want to, threatening to kill himself if we were to divorce. I could go on and on. This made me finally realize, along with my therapist's help, a lot of self-reflection, and my exchanges on Reddit, that I was in an abusive relationship, which is an important part, actually the most important part of this update. Please look up definitions and examples of abuse, because I had no idea that what my husband had been doing all these years, even before the affair, counted as such. In his case, it was psychological abuse, manipulation, gaslighting, guilt-tripping, blame-shifting, emotional blackmail, nothing aggressive or mean, which turned me into a very submissive partner over the years, always catering to his needs while erasing mine. I rationalized everything. It happened suddenly and gradually, and I was too naive to see it for what it was. His emotional affair and open marriage proposal were the natural continuity of that. Of course, the more I tried to get away from him, the more manipulative he got. Now that I was aware of it, I knew what he was doing, but fighting years of conditioning, even if you recognize it and succeed, is effing exhausting and disarming. So earlier today, I brought a friend home to assist me. We sat down, the 3 of us, and I told my husband we were over, and I handed him the papers. It might sound dumb, but it's genuinely one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. I was terrified, yet he agreed. He repeatedly asked me if I was sure. He reminded me of the family we were planning to have and of our best memories together. Was it all for nothing? Apparently, yes. He was heartbroken, clearly mad and frustrated. But still, he agreed. He signed them and went back to his parents for now. We still have to go through the whole procedure, separate our assets, decide what to do with the house and all, and he still wants us to go to marriage counseling. But right now, I feel free for the first time in months. The last hours have been a mix of tears, celebration, and godly restful sleep. And I have to thank you guys again, because my first Reddit post was the wake-up call I needed to eventually, finally get here. Better late than never. Thank you so much. Lot of love to you all. Relevant comments. Comment 1. He reminded me of the family we were planning to have and of our best memories together. Was it all for nothing? Apparently, yes. He was heartbroken. That's a special kind of was it all for nothing after cheating on his partner. He sounds like an insufferable. Honestly, congrats on your freedom. OP. I know, right? The hypocrisy, the nerves of this man. The worst part is that he appears very charming to everyone who knows him, myself included. Hell, a lot of people from our circle who are aware of what he did still think he's a good person who just lost himself for a while. I guess it's hard to accept that the ones we love can be terrible people too. Comment 2. You have been through a long, hard journey, and it will take a while yet, but you are investing in yourself and your health and happiness. Good for you. Continue self-care and practice safety and security. Slow down and heal so that you will be strong and ready to seek and recognize true love. Wishing you a joyous future. You can do this. OP. Thank you. I'll do my best. I like to think the hardest part is behind me, but this story taught me to expect the worst. Whatever happens though, from now on, it's me first. I deserve love and happiness, and I'll fight for it. Update 3. My previous post should have been the final update. I wish. God, I wish. But no, of course not. Of course it got worse again. My life after my soon-to-be ex-husband signed the divorce papers. We went no contact, or at least I tried to. He still sent me text messages, voice messages, and tried to call me multiple times. He even sent me a long letter full of statements such as, "I'm concerned that your mental health is deteriorating. I believe you need antidepressants to help you feel like yourself again." Or, "Your trauma is understandable, but it probably makes you want to punish me by making irrational decisions like divorce." Or, "I am afraid you are surrounding yourself with questionable influences that have bad agendas. Please let me help you see it through." He claimed that the crisis was just as hard for him as it was for me. People told me he was escalating and that I should protect myself. I should have listened immediately, but I didn't react soon enough. Then he came to our street. He arrived uninvited and pleaded with me to give him a second chance. He said he wanted to be there for me and for us, insisting that he didn't deserve any of this. I started to feel distressed. He saw that I was unwell and wanted to comfort me, so he hugged me. But I didn't want to be touched. I'm pretty sure I told him no. I think I screamed no multiple times, but my memory is fuzzy. Either I misremember, or I did say no and he ignored it and didn't stop. I know it's just a hug, but it triggered a severe panic attack. He called emergency services, telling them he was worried about me because I wasn't myself. I had to ask the paramedics to make him leave. After that, he told me he was there for me if I needed him, but he thought we needed space. He contacted half of our social circle to inform them that I was unwell and needed support. Our mutual friends, my colleagues, our neighbors, my physician. People reached out of the blue to ask if I was okay. I became paranoid, unsure of who to trust anymore. Close friends, my therapist, and people here helped me see things more clearly. My lawyer filed a restraining order against him, but unfortunately it was refused. Not enough concrete evidence of a threat, apparently. I want to scream. We submitted a second request, which is currently being reviewed. In the meantime, I've moved into an apartment of my own. He doesn't know where I live? Hell, almost nobody does. I constantly wonder how he reacted when he found out. I'm still paying my half of the mortgage because nothing has been decided regarding our house yet. It's financially very hard for me, but I do feel safer. I am feeling much better, although I remain haunted by constant stress, sleep disorders, nightmares, nervous tics, random bursts of tears, and rushes of anxiety. My physician prescribed me sedatives. They do make it easier. I realize I'm isolating myself more and more. I try to fight it, but I'm really afraid that sensitive information could leak, even accidentally. I've started reaching out to my closest friends again as much as I can. I'm trying to come back here on Reddit. I keep going to therapy. It's necessary because one part of me, the part he cultivated for so long, urges me to stop all of this, to go back to the house, cancel the restraining order, cancel the divorce, call him, apologize, and repair our relationship. It would be insane. I am not going to do that. I do not listen to that little voice. I don't. But when your defenses are attacked over and over again, it becomes incredibly hard to reason properly. I can't wait for the divorce to be over. I just want to move on. I want all of this to be behind me. I'm sorry, this is bleak. I wish I would have left sooner. I just hope this can help someone. Anyone. Relevant comments. Comment 1. Needs to get cameras for her new place. OP. I already have a Ring doorbell. I am waiting for this month's salary, which should probably arrive today or tomorrow, to buy additional cameras. I also got my landlord's authorization to add latches to the door. I hope this will help. Comment 2. Talks with her therapist about how manipulative her ex is. My therapist is aware. She stopped putting gloves on a while ago and straight up said his behavior is abusive. She encouraged me to move out and gave me a lot of grounding and breathing exercises to help me when it gets overwhelming. As I said in another comment, I'll see if I can find someone else, maybe specialized in trauma, but the waiting list can be very long here. I've been journaling for a few months now, and it's true that it helps a lot. As for my friends, I have a couple ones I really trust, and they already know everything. I am trying to find a balance between venting to them about all of this and keeping some lighter, positive interactions. Anyway, thanks for your support. It means a lot to me. Now on to the next story. Story 8. I just discovered my husband has been telling his coworkers I'm his sister. What should I do? I need advice. Throwaway account because I don't use or understand Reddit, but I really need advice from someone not connected to me or my husband. My husband, I'll call him Josh, and I have been together for 6 years, married for 4, and we don't have kids. We have a really healthy and communicative relationship. We're both pretty easygoing, and I really love him. He started working at a large accounting firm about 3 years ago, and from what he tells me, he loves it there. He's made a lot of friends through his job, and he goes out with them for drinks and social events quite often, and I've been totally okay with that. I'm quite introverted, so I've never been interested in meeting his colleagues or work friends, nor have I asked to. I've got my own circle of friends, and I'm fine with us having separate friend groups. After what happened yesterday, it only just occurred to me that he has never actually asked me if I'd like to meet any of them or go to one of his work events. I guess that's important context. Anyway, I'll start with what happened a few months ago that I had brushed off until now. I was at a bar with some friends for a couple of Friday after-work drinks, and a guy approached me. He was there with some friends too. He looked slightly familiar, but I hadn't met him before. He seemed friendly enough and he asked me my name. I think I must have just given him a confused look because he followed up with, "I'm Jake. I work with Josh." I realized that I recognized him from some photos on my husband's phone. I don't use social media except for a private Instagram, so I'm not sure if he posted the photos anywhere, but we've got a very trusting relationship, so I look in his photos sometimes. Don't hate me. This is where it gets a bit embarrassing. I'm a bit socially awkward, and so I struggled to end the conversation, but he just kept talking at me. I guess he was already a couple of beers deep, but while he was talking, he said something like, "It's great that you guys are still so close. I haven't talked to my brother in ages." At the time, I was like, huh, but I just assumed he was drunk and not making sense, so I ignored it. He started to get a little flirty, so I turned to my friends, and we left shortly after that. I didn't say anything to them about it, and it didn't seem like a big deal to me. I also decided not to tell my husband that I had met his coworker, Jake, not to hide it, but because I figured the guy wouldn't even remember talking to me, and I didn't want to make it awkward for Josh at work by telling him his colleague tried to hit on me. I just thought, no harm, no foul. But yesterday morning, I was out walking our dog, Monty. He's a cross between a few breeds and has very unique markings. This matters, I promise. And was on my way to my regular cafe, which is in town. I was waiting in line to order and the guy in front was an older man. He got his coffee and turned around but stopped and looked at my dog and goes, "Hello, Monty." Monty was super excited to see him apparently. And so I guess that the guy was another colleague of Josh's because Josh brings the dog to the office a couple of times a week. I thought it was sweet to be honest, so I smiled at him and said hi. He introduced himself. I guess correctly that he was a colleague. But then he said something like, "Aren't you a good sister walking his dog for him?" I was so confused that I didn't even know how to react at first. So I stumbled on my words and just said, "It's my dog. I regret it, but I genuinely couldn't bring myself to correct him and say that I'm Josh's wife and not his sister. It was just too awkward, and I just wanted to leave because I think it was suddenly dawning on me what might have been going on. He asked me something about sharing a dog, but I was able to escape the conversation by being next in line to order my coffee, and he left. I seriously don't know what to do because what do I even ask my husband about this? Part of me is just assuming or hoping that it's a mistake, that he doesn't talk about me much at work and they assume we are related because we both have brown hair. But the thought that he has been telling his coworkers that I'm his sister, and evidently they have seen what I look like, so they must have seen photos, makes my stomach churn. I don't even know how I would broach the subject with him. I need some help. What would you guys do in this situation? I have only told one friend what happened because it's so weird and embarrassing, and she has jumped straight to, time to plot his downfall, because she's my ride or die. Love her, but I don't want to immediately assume the worst or ruin my marriage over something that could be nothing. I'm sorry for the long and rambly post, but I would really appreciate any and all advice. Edit. Holy. Thank you everyone who commented with some advice. I haven't read all of them, but I really appreciate the suggestions from you guys. A small update. Josh came home at about 2:30 a.m. last night, but he was drunk, so he just went straight to sleep, which is fine by me because having this conversation in that state, I've just woken up but he's still sleeping. First thing I just want to clear up, I've seen a lot of people suggesting I have crippling social anxiety or am severely introverted, which I suppose you could glean from the way I explained what happened, but I'm not. I meant that I'm slightly introverted and that I'm not the most eager to meet lots of new people at once, especially a bunch of finance brothers, whose weekends consist of unending sports bar beers where I assume I would be mansplained everything until my ears bleed. Prob a negative assumption, but I'm sure some of you know what I mean. I suppose you could say that I'm confrontation averse and that I'm quite laid back and prefer to keep a conversation easy and positive. IDK, I don't like it when things are awkward, and correcting when people misrecognize me is one of those things, but I'm not terrified of confrontation. Also, my husband and I do share some mutual friends. I didn't explain that well, but our lives are not entirely separate. The way he acts towards me around our mutual friends is extremely affectionate and normal. It is only his work friends that I have never interacted with. I've also seen some people suggest that what is going on is equivalent to my husband beating me and me hopelessly wondering whether I should break up with him, or that I'm stupid for thinking my relationship was healthy when it clearly isn't. Like, damn, cut me some slack. I'm a real person and this is an entirely alien and bizarre situation for me. My first reaction wasn't to assume the worst, but I do appreciate that you all have made me certain that it is a big deal. I guess I needed confirmation that the things that happened are enough proof that Josh has been purposefully lying and they weren't just mix-ups. I'm going to talk to him today and ask him directly why he's telling his coworkers that I'm his sister. I followed the advice of writing my points down so that they don't get lost if I get emotional, lol. I will do my best not to let him slither out of it, and I hope he has some proof that his colleagues know I'm his wife. I know that's not the theatrical confrontation you guys were hoping for, but it's a Saturday and I can't wait. Wish me luck. Thank you all. Update 1. Hi everyone. I just wanted to say thank you for the overwhelming amount of support and advice. I'm blown away and it really means a lot and has kept me grounded. I'm sorry for the slow update. I know a lot of you were interested in what happened. I actually tried to update on Saturday, but it turns out this subreddit doesn't allow me to post an update until 48 hours after my first post. I'm also only allowed to post one single update, so I'll try to fit as much as I can here. Sorry for how long it might end up getting. I'll just get right into it. On Saturday morning, I woke up earlier than my husband. He was very hungover, so he was sleeping like a rock. But you guys will be proud of me because I followed some advice and decided to look through his phone properly while he was sleeping. I have been on his phone so often just pissing around on it that I had never thought to check anything very deeply. I know his passcode by heart. I checked all the expected things like Instagram DMs, Facebook Messenger, his IM messages, etc., and I didn't find anything that set off alarm bells to me. But I know from some comments that people who are cheating are good at covering their tracks and hiding messages, so I kept looking around. I saw he had a folder called Work, and so I looked in there and he had a couple of Microsoft apps, Outlook, Authenticator, OneNote, etc., but he also had MS Teams, so I opened that up and had a look around. It did feel like I might have been breaking laws looking at his work messages, but I obviously had to. Anyway, I was already upset to see that he had a bunch of one-on-one chats with several female coworkers, which at first glance is obviously not an issue because everyone works with people of the opposite sex and are required to communicate with them. But a couple of them were vaguely flirty. Nothing I would call egregious, but there would be the occasional message between them with some playful innuendo or a wink emoji. These upset me, obviously, and they did send me into a bit of a spiral, but I didn't find anything that suggested he was having an out-and-out affair with any of them. Still, I followed someone's suggestion of screenshotting the messages and I airdropped them to myself. I still wanted some evidence of the lie though, some proof of Josh telling someone that I was his sister directly. A commenter suggested that I go through his messages and search for the keyword, sister. I wanted to reply to your comment and say thank you for the idea, but the post was locked, so I couldn't, but thank you. So I searched for sis on his MS Teams, hoping to find results for both sister and sis. A bunch of messages from all-hands group chats or one-on-one chats came up from other people, all unrelated and about their own sisters or whatever, but my heart dropped out my ass, lol, when I saw there was a direct message from Jake, the guy from the bar, to Josh from a Sunday a few months ago. Jake's message said, "Ran into your sis at the bar on Fry. She's single, right?" And my husband had the gall to reply, "Nah, she's married." I literally almost burst into flames on the spot when I saw that. I can't even describe how much I was shaking after reading those messages. Firstly, that I could have confronted Josh about this months ago. I was and still am so furious with myself for that. Josh would have been praying I didn't remember meeting Jake or that I wouldn't mention it, and he would have been counting his lucky stars that I never did. He probably thought he was hot for getting away with that, and I nearly burned a hole through the floor thinking about it, lol. But secondly, I was just in shock that he had the balls to tell this guy that I'm the one who is married because he doesn't want anyone having it on with me. But he is allowed to coyly flirt with every woman in the office? Anyway, I kept going back through the search results on his MS Teams, and eventually I got as far back as 2-ish years ago, and I did in fact find a message from Josh himself to a group chat. It said, "Me and sis in Najua." I clicked on that and saw that he had sent it alongside a bunch of photos of him and I from our holiday to Bali. We went to Bali for our second anniversary. I thought he probably chose those photos because he's shirtless and had been working out, so he looked hot in all of them. I was in tears seeing all of this, obviously. I took screenshots of those too and airdropped all of the screenshots to myself. Needless to say, I was devastated and still am to see all of that. I am still struggling to even process it at all. But that all happened on Saturday morning, and I immediately took myself to my friend's house. I'll call her Sophie. I went to her place to cry it out and show her what I found, and she was extremely supportive and probably more furious than me. LOL. At around 1:30 p.m., I got a phone call from Josh, and I hung it up immediately. He sent me a few messages along the lines of, "Where are you, baby? I'm ordering food. Want some? Sad to not wake up next to you this morning." Guys, I have to reiterate how much I love this man and how heart-wrenching it was to see him still acting like nothing had gone wrong. It took so much willpower to not just pretend none of it had ever happened and go home to him. I know a lot of you will yell at me or accuse me of being terrified of confronting him about this, which is not true. Please have some empathy. It takes me time to process my emotions, and I wouldn't have even been able to form a sentence if I tried to confront him immediately after seeing those messages. I needed some time away with Sophie to recollect myself, and so I stayed the night at her place. She ordered us Chinese, and she helped me plan how I would confront him. I got a bunch more texts and calls from him as the evening progressed, and I eventually put my phone on Do Not Disturb. Sunday morning, I woke up feeling more angry than sad, so I opened my phone and finally replied to his messages. "Coming home now. Need to talk." I kept it cryptic to make him squirm, to be honest, because I was and am fraught with emotions. I can't remember the entire conversation word for word, but I'll try to replay it as best I can. Long story short, I got home, and he tried to hug me, but I refused him, and we just stood in the kitchen. I did confront him like someone suggested. I just said, "Why have you been telling your coworkers I'm your sister?" I wish it would have been like a movie scene where the color drained from his face or he immediately looked like a deer in headlights, but he didn't. It was like he had been steeling himself for this confrontation for a while, because he just frowned at me and looked flabbergasted. He just said, "Huh, this made me so angry. How are you going to pretend to be stupid after 3 years of lying?" I basically said, "Don't play. 2 of your coworkers have greeted me as your sister, and I have proof of you telling them, and I know you're pretending to be single," essentially. I asked him what he had to say for himself. He still played stupid. He became moderately defensive and just kept saying, "I don't know what you're talking about," or, "Why would I lie about you?" I cannot describe how furious I was at this point, but I was in tears. I always cry when I'm angry, so he was trying to comfort me as if I was having some kind of irrational breakdown. I showed him the screenshot of his message saying, "Me and sis," and I said something like, "You tell me." He just said, "I don't know what I'm looking at and I'm confused." I got so angry that I left again and went back to Sophie's because it felt like a dead-end road. I didn't think I was going to get him to admit to anything, and I was just getting so furious I couldn't continue. He was really upset and in tears, which to me was evidence that he knew he was lying and that he was going to have to come up with some explanation. He tried to get me to stay, but I told him that until you have something to say for yourself, we've got nothing to talk about. At like 8:30-ish, he called me again, and I did pick up. He basically asked for us to talk, and he said he has some things to say, so I went back to our apartment. He had written out a bunch of stuff on a piece of paper as if he had prepared a speech and sat me down on the couch. He asked me not to say anything while he was explaining himself. I'll write down the gist of what he said in bullet points. He started by apologizing relentlessly and admitting that he pretended to be stupid before because he couldn't immediately think of something to say for himself. He said that immediately after he started at his job, he realized the atmosphere was like a frat house. All of his team members were men in their 20s and 30s that were single and boys, his word. He noticed that the one guy in their team that was married would either get picked on or essentially excluded from any and all social interactions that included getting lunch, inside jokes, going out on Friday, etc. These guys were friendly and welcoming to Josh, and he admitted that he was desperate to fit in with them. He hated feeling like fresh meat, so he was scared that saying he was married would alienate him from his coworkers. At first, he just never mentioned that he was married. He said he did wear his wedding ring and that they had just never pointed it out. A few months in, they were all out drinking after work. He admitted that after one of his workmates saw a picture of him and I on his lock screen, they asked him who I was, and in a moment of panic, he said, "My sister." He was really apologetic at this point and he was crying a lot. He couldn't even look at me, and he was just reading what he had written down. Anyway, he said that from then, he basically dug himself a deeper and deeper grave because they kept grilling him about me and wanting to see more pictures of me. He said he had let it go on too long and that he didn't have the balls to admit to the lie. They would always bring me up and ask like, "Did you give her my number yet?" Or joke that they had slept with me, etc. So when he got that message from Jake, he essentially thought it was just him taking the piss. But he didn't like the jokes they were making about me and said that I was married in hopes they would stop. They didn't. He said this wasn't the first time he told them I was married. In fact, he had said so pretty much immediately after saying I was his sister. He said that those pictures of us in Najwa were the only pictures that he had purposefully sent them and deliberately lied about after what he called an endless barrage of pestering from his colleagues to share the pics from his holiday. He said he was really ashamed that he did that. He told me that he had never had an affair or even considered it, that the messages between him and his female colleagues were banter, and that it was commonplace to talk to people like that in the office. He also said he knows how disgusting it is, and he is embarrassed to have been acting like a boy again, his word. He concluded his speech by apologizing again and said that he was disgusted with himself and ashamed that he had lied for so long, but felt like he had trapped himself and that he couldn't find a way to get himself out of it. He said he knows he could have confessed the truth to either his coworkers or to me at any point, but that he didn't because he was a coward. He said that he'll confess to his entire office that he lied and that I am his wife and not his sister if I want him to. He said that he will quit his job without a word if it would make me feel better and that he hopes I can forgive him, but he understands if I can't. Anyway, I couldn't really think of anything to say at that point. He went to lock himself in the bathroom, and I just sat on the couch crying. I still don't know if I can trust what he said, and a lie that extreme is just baffling to me. If he can lie like that for so long, what else could he be lying about? But his explanation and apologies seem so sincere and genuine, and I guess to an extent what he said is believable. He has always been extroverted but very susceptible to peer pressure, especially from other blokes. If nothing else, to me it's a sign of shocking immaturity. Anyway, I packed up a bag and went back to Sophie's, and I'm still at her place as I'm writing this. She said I can stay as long as I need to. I told Josh that I needed time away from him to think about everything and whether or not I believe him or whether I can ever trust him again. He told me to take as long as I needed and that he will still be there if or when I get back. He said even if it takes a year. Right now, nothing feels real. I'm still dealing with the emotional whiplash from all of this, and I can't keep food down or think about anything. I've taken the day off work, and Josh told me he's going to take off the whole week. Sophie and my other friends have told me not to make a decision on anything until my head is clear. I spoke to my parents this morning, and my mom says it's just a bump in the road, but she and my dad adore Josh, so they're pretty biased, lol. That's where I am right now. I'll take some time before I consider my next steps. I can't say whether I'm leaning towards forgiveness or divorce, but those are really the only options. I kind of feel lost in a void at the moment. That's probably the best way to describe it. Just emptiness. Thanks again for all of your advice and support. I'm truly so grateful. And having this place to write down all of my thoughts has been helpful to get my mind a little clearer. This will be my last update unless I make an edit to clear things up. All the best. Now on to the next story. Story 9. My husband is cheating on me with my best friend, betraying both our marriage and my trust in the most painful way. I'm honestly not sure where to start, so I guess I'll just start. My husband and I have been dating since I was 19 and he was 22. We've been married for 6 years now. We have 2 kids, and I'm 6 months pregnant with our third. 2 years ago, I found out my dad has stage 3 colon cancer. My dad is my only parent as my mom passed away when I was 12. He's my favorite human, and life without him doesn't seem as colorful. His laugh is constant, and he gives these big bear hugs that seem to make all of your broken pieces feel like they're perfectly in place again. Whenever I've had a hard day, he doesn't poke and prod and just lets me vent and listens. About 5 months ago, we discovered the treatments aren't working for him, and in direct quote from the doctor, he said, "Months, not years." Since then, he's gotten progressively worse and now is losing memory. He looked at the dog he got for me on my 21st birthday and said, "Wow, that's a nice dog. Where'd you get it?" My husband has been my absolute rock. He has been there for me, holding my hand and helping me through this. He's been so loving and attentive to both my kids and I. Don't get me wrong, I am a mother first, always. I don't allow myself to wallow. My kids are still loved, cared for, played with, and I haven't let my load slack around the house once. Once my dad got his updated prognosis, my husband encouraged me to quit my job. About a month later, we discovered we were pregnant again, and I still hadn't let go of my job. I kept holding out for some reason. After finding out I was pregnant again, he assured me it was still okay to quit my job, that honestly, it would save us a small fortune on daycare costs anyways. So I did, I quit my job. My best friend and I have been friends since diapers. Her family is like my family and vice versa. My mom and her mom grew up together. We've always been solid. And right after my dad's appointment, when we found out he had so little time left, I drove straight to her house and she held me while I cried for hours. If there are soulmates in friend form, she was mine. Thick as thieves is what my mom used to say. This morning, as I was up with my 3-year-old, he's sick. My husband's work alarm was going off. He has a few he set, so I turned that one off and gently woke him up. He said he was up late working, so he took the morning off, rolled over, and went back to sleep. As I went to turn off the remainder of his alarms, I saw a text from my friend on his lock screen that said, "I'm assuming since there hasn't been an angry pregnant lady on my doorstep, you haven't told her about us yet." Time froze at that moment. I took his phone and walked away and just read their conversations. For months, this man has been my best friend. For months, these people have been lying to my face. And I know what you're going to say. You should have seen the warning signs. But I've been clutching this phone in my hand for 2 hours and nothing. He has been so loving and attentive to me, but he always has been so kind and gentle. There have been no late-night work nights, except for once in a blue moon. There has been no lingering touches between them or even glances. They act as they have since the day I first introduced them. How sick is it that she calls him her brother, but she screws him? I know so many people get a moment of clarity in situations like this, but I have none. Aside from being sad about my dad, I haven't changed. I'm still a loving wife and mother. I still doted on him and my children. I talk to him about how he is doing and how his day is every freaking day. I haven't allowed the ground to swallow me whole. I know what I have to do now, but I just don't want to. I'm about to lose my family and my support system in one blow. I'll confront him tomorrow. Today I just need this last 24 hours of peace. As for her, I won't give her the satisfaction of a response. I don't care why she did it and it's done. I was always the friend who cleaned up her messes. After today, I will cut her out of my life like she never mattered at all. This has to be the hardest storm I'll ever weather, but damn it, I know I'll sail through it, if not for me, for my children. Update 1. A small update about everything going on since my kids are now in bed for the night. I spent the morning gathering everything I could and making a checklist. I sat in my office for the better part of the morning telling my husband that I was preparing things for my dad. Not a total lie, I did have to get him sorted with hospice today. My boss would be happy to have me back. However, my lawyer said, pump the brakes on that idea for the time being. However, my old boss did tell me that whenever I'm ready, the door is open and to just give her a call. He does not have access to my inheritance from my father nor my mother. My lawyer assured me that. I didn't mention her in the post, but my mother-in-law is an absolute angel. I love and adore her so much, and she's always been a shoulder to lean on. After he had gone to work for the afternoon, I asked my now ex-best friend's mom and my mother-in-law to meet me at my dad's house. My kids were outside playing with my now ex-BFF's older brother. I just handed them the screenshots, saving them from the unsavory pictures and sex tape, though I did tell them it existed. To say they were furious was an understatement, and they are on my side completely. Angie, my now ex-BFF's mom, is ready to cut contact with her daughter completely. She kept repeating how sorry she was. We hugged and cried together. My mother-in-law told me she couldn't believe she raised a spineless, terrible human, that no matter what happens, I will always have her, and as far as she's concerned, she doesn't have a son, only a daughter. After an in-person meeting with my lawyer, we went over finances, logistics, and everything you could think of. She has all of the proof and she's out for blood. With this post now on TikTok, I don't want him to find out by an app, as one look at the story and he'd know it was about him. With permission from my lawyer, my ex-BFF, her mom and dad, my soon-to-be ex, and his parents will be having a get-together tomorrow. By the time they're sitting down and showing them everything and that I know my dad, my kids, and my ex-BFF's brother, he's coming to help me juggle the kids, and my dad being big and pregnant doesn't help with mobility. We'll be at my dad's cabin a few hours away, enjoying time and space. I know a lot of people were hoping for me to get revenge or do psychological warfare, but honestly, after my kids went to bed, I took a shower and just broke. I don't have the strength or energy to dish anything out. I just want out. Pretending like everything was okay today was too exhausting, and I just don't want to do it. Once he finds out tomorrow, I'll update with the aftermath, as I'm sure it will be huge. As for now, thank you all so much for your kindness, warmth, and support. Truly, your words have helped give me the strength to keep my head above water. I appreciate every single last one of you for everything. Update 2. For my typing's sake, I'm gonna give everyone fake names. So for context, mother-in-law and father-in-law, Ruth and Joe. Ex-best friend forever parents, Angie and Bob. Ex-best friend forever, Jess. Soon-to-be ex, Tyler. Ex-best friend forever's brother, Jake. And I'll just refer to my dad as Dad. I have a few things I want to get through, so I'll just summarize as best as I can. And if you have any questions, I'll answer in the comments. To get this out of the way, because to me it feels important, yesterday I scheduled a same-day appointment with my obstetrician-gynecologist and got tested for just about every STD/STI out there. I got the results back and they were all negative. There are a few that take up to 2 weeks to get the results back for, so I'll be waiting on those. When I met with my lawyer, I brought everything on my end financially wise, including the wills from both my dad and my mom, and I managed to get my hands on his financial documents. He stores his in his office in a locked box. I also brought over everything we had set up financially for my children. While I'm not totally sure if it's everything, I'm pretty confident I got most of it. My lawyer was happy I managed to get my hands on that much. Ruth even handed over her will to me from both her and Bob to ensure I was taken care of in the divorce. My lawyer understands I am wanting a divorce immediately. However, she wants to make sure she is thorough and isn't missing any key info, so hopefully, I'll have actual divorce papers to give him in about 30 days. I'm not rushing her though. I'm letting the professional do her job. Now for the sit down. I asked Angie and Ruth to describe everything in detail on what happened. Angie, the revenge seeker that she is, forced them to sit through a slideshow she put together of all of the texts. I know a lot of you were concerned about one of them telling them sooner than later, but they were so secretive they didn't even tell their significant others about what was happening. Once the slideshow ended, Tyler tried lunging for Jess, and Joe actually had to force him to sit down. Tyler was shouting profanities at Jess and telling her she will regret this. Jess started crying and begging her parents for forgiveness. Bob looked his daughter in the eye and told her he will never forgive her for this. Blood or not, she is no daughter of his. He didn't raise his daughter to be this person. Jess was always a daddy's girl, so I think that cut her pretty deep. Jess is in the middle of a divorce herself, and her parents were giving her money for her lawyer, and they told her she is cut off from them both financially and physically. Tyler's dad was irate. According to Ruth, he looked like he was holding back on throttling him. From there, Tyler went straight home. I know because we have a Ring doorbell camera along with a few cameras in the house for our kids to keep an eye on them when we aren't right next to them. Tyler came home and saw that most of mine and the kids' stuff was gone, and he lost it. He started yelling and throwing things. The house is now trashed with a few holes in the walls for decoration. When he didn't find us there, he went to my dad's. While I did spend most of the day he was at work packing and moving things into my dad's house, we were already at his cabin. Tyler took a baseball bat to my dad's door, trying and failing to break it down. My dad's neighbor actually called the cops on him, and he was arrested. His parents refused to bail him out. I had an appointment with my therapist today. I've had one for a year now since I was struggling with my dad, and it felt good to just cry it out and let everything out about how I was feeling. It was very helpful, and she gave me a few tools to work through my emotions. With this one, I felt very grounded and empowered leaving my session today. I'm also planning on setting up my children with a therapist when we get back from the cabin to figure out the best way to deal with telling them. I know people said I shouldn't, but I will be telling them just in an age-appropriate way. I don't want there to be secrets and lies between us. I've always been as open and honest as I can with them. Again, in the most kid-appropriate way. Just because they're small humans, they're still humans and still deserve the truth. I had a handful of comments telling me I should stay and every man cheats. I should work things out because most of our marriage was good. I refuse to believe all men cheat. My parents were married for 20 years, and after my mom passed, my dad never moved on. I watched my dad love my mom for 12 of those years and cherish her. I will not accept anything less than that kind of love. He never cheated, nor did she. While I'm not sure when I'll be ready to move on, falling in love is the absolute last thing on my mind at the moment. I refuse to let Tyler win and destroy love for me completely. I will move on from this. Jess started blowing up my phone demanding I fix this situation and immediately blaming me. My lawyer told me to not block texts just in case they spill out additional info I was missing. She was playing the poor me card very hard. The thing is though, I never influenced Angie and Bob to cut contact with their daughter. They made that choice on their own. She actually started blaming me for stealing the love of her life. I introduced them when Tyler and I started dating, so not sure where that came from, and that Tyler is only with me for the kids. Honestly, I knew she was just trying to hurt me at that point. I didn't give her the satisfaction of responding though. Between her and Tyler, I have about 200 missed calls. Tyler went from begging and pleading me to forgive him. Like I said, I didn't have divorce papers to hand him, so he's stuck in this unknown gray area. I also asked Angie and Ruth to not say anything about the divorce to him yet, purely just for my satisfaction, honestly. I know it's slightly petty, but keeping him in that gray area of not knowing is my small revenge to him, to threatening to call the cops on me for kidnapping, telling me Jess wasn't the only one. Bingo! Just what I was looking for. To telling me I'm a stuck-up, to threatening me to back to begging me for forgiveness. Honestly, it was just a whiplash reading those texts. I'd be lying if I said that those texts didn't hurt me and terrify me all at once, but I refuse to let them break me. As for both of them together, I don't think he's going to stay with her. I think he blames her for blowing up our marriage. Honestly, who knows though? They deserve each other. I was initially okay to do a 50-50 split with Tyler for custody, but after his reaction, I don't feel comfortable with that, so I'll likely be going for full custody. Jake has about 30 days of leave he saved up, and he's going to be using them to help the kids and I get settled at my dad's house and honestly, to be there in case Tyler tries showing up going crazy again. He's been such a big help to the kids and I lately, and I'm forever in his debt for this. Last night after the kids went to bed, he hooked up his Xbox and we played a game called Diablo 4 together to help me take my mind off of things. It was fun. However, he did sort of confess that he's always had feelings for me somewhere in the midst of things, but also told me to not say or do anything back. He understands a relationship or anything like that isn't on my mind and won't be for a while. He isn't wrong, but just that he's felt that way since we were teenagers and just wanted to get it off his chest. Thank you again, seriously. Your comments, your support, your messages. All of it has been one giant breath of fresh air. Just knowing I have a whole online community willing to go to bat for me has kept me treading water these last couple days. Your comments have popped in my head when I felt like just giving up on leaving him because it's so hard and gave me so many great points and helpful advice. I know I deserve more and I can't accept his actions. And to the people who commented relating to my situation, my heart goes out to you all. This pain is awful, and I hate that so many of you can relate, but your stories have resonated deep within me. You all keep commending me for my strength, and my personal favorite is telling me how proud of me you are. Every time I see those words, I start to tear up. I'm blaming the pregnancy hormones, but your words have helped put me at ease, so that way I could do what I knew I needed to do. So I'll leave this here for now. If anything of importance happens when I go back home, I'll update further. Thank you all. and I hope you have a wonderful evening. Question in the comments. Hobbit Bones? I'm sure many of us would like to know, have you told your lawyer that you want to go for full custody, and have you saved those messages your soon-to-be ex sent with threats toward you and your children? I'm sure you have, since you saved screenshots of messages the first time. You've handled this really well. You've done all the right things to gather evidence and protect yourself. I'm proud of you, and I really wish the best for you and your children. OP answer. I forwarded everything to her, as well as telling her he was arrested, and she responded with full custody, and I agreed. Thank you truly so much. A comment deleted after an overwhelming number of down votes faulted OP for taking her kid's father away from them. To this, OP replied, I'm not taking away their father. I will not keep them from him at all, but yes, I will most likely go for full custody. Not out of bitterness or spite, because I could simply never be that person. There is zero excuse for punching holes in walls and trying to break down my dad's door, threatening to unalive me, unalive our children. If he wants to see them, I will allow supervised visits. Maybe in the future, if he gets therapy and help for those thoughts and actions, I'll allow it. For now, my mind is made up. You may see it as running away, but I see it as taking space to comprehend what has happened to my life and allow myself breathing room. My entire future I had carved out for myself and my children has exploded right in front of my face. That deserves breathing room. And yes, I allowed others to confront what they did to me simply because I don't have the mental capacity. My focus is on my kids and my dad. Everything else is background noise. Honestly, even if I did confront them myself, my in-laws and ex-friends' parents would have had their own confrontation regardless. I am fully aware I will have to face the music one day. However, today is not that day, and I plan on enjoying that for the time being. People doubted if OP's story was true as the break between updates was quite short, with comments like, all this in 1 day and a half. To which OP replied, my doctor's appointment took an hour at max. Most OBs do same-day appointments for urgent reasons. I just moved clothing, some toys, and any of my important things to my dad's, which is 15 minutes away from my home with help from quite a few people, to be honest. It wasn't even a lot of stuff to move anyways. It all fit in the bed of my father-in-law's pickup. I was lucky that a lawyer had a same-day opening spot and gathered documents that are all stored in one spot because I keep them organized. I already have weekly virtual therapy sessions, which just so happened to be today, which was an hour. All I did was give my in-laws and ex-BFF's parents the screenshots and saw them for about 2 hours before I headed home, which I usually spend time with my dad in the evenings, so he was fully aware of where I was, but I asked him to stay home and start dinner instead of coming and drive to a cabin. I found out yesterday around 6 to 7 a.m. Do people not understand how little actually happened? Jess. I was hoping it wasn't you when I saw this on TikTok, but obviously it is you. Kirsten. I told you to break up with him. I told you Tobias was in love with me. You refused to listen. I told you my husband left me because he was cheating, but it was because Toby told me we could run away together and we could be together. You ruined everything and now he won't speak to me. You need to clean your mess up instead of posting on socials being a pathetic POS. You're unbelievable. Did you think I wouldn't see this and find out? I hope you miss Carrie. Technical Pumpkin 65's, also somebody in OP's life, reply to Jess. Are you serious? Jade, apparently Jess's real name, coming here and playing the victim? You disgusting fake human being. Not only that, but you expose yourself by telling the real names. Now everyone will know it's you and your entourage. You are so jealous and have a huge obsession with Kirsten that you ruined your own life after all the mess you created. It's obvious Toby never loved you but just wanted to use you for his pleasure. There is nothing more easier to manipulate than a jealous freak who has an obsession with him. If he really wanted to run away with you, he would have done it a long time ago, but he lied to your face with the one big excuse ever. I stay for the kids, huh? You are the clown, well, beach here not victim. That's why even your own parents cut you out from their lives too. You are such a shame as a woman, but also as a human being. You pretend to befriend and betray not only her but your family and your own husband. Can't wait to hear what will happen to you when more people will know around you. You will finally receive the treatment you deserve, especially after wishing her to lose her baby. Karma will do his job now. OP's reply to Jess. You told me to break up with him when I was 19 and you were engaged to another man. You never said why. You never said anything about him because if you did I never would have been married and you would have been cut out sooner. Also no, I put fake names in the post to protect your identities, but if you want to blast yourself to the public that's your choice, not mine. Update 3. Hi everyone. I know a lot of people are still asking for an update. Not much has happened, but here are the things that have happened. Tyler discovered the post and asked me if I was seeking a divorce. I said I was. He apologized for losing his cool, asked if there was any hope for reconciliation. I said no. We did have a conversation about the kids, and he'll be allowed to see them with supervision, to which he agreed to. I had another meeting with my lawyer. Nothing of major importance happened. Nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, has happened with Jake. He didn't take back his confession, but as I said, it's on the back burner for a long while. My kids' health and well-being take priority over all else. My dad's health is on a steady decline. He's now in the hospital with no release date in the immediate future. Please send over thoughts and well wishes his way. My kids are adjusting well. We have a therapy appointment for them scheduled next week to help them. My oldest has more questions than the rest, but I'm trying to save any big conversations for the therapy appointment so I know I'm conveying the answers in a meaningful and the least harmful way. Also, my oldest made tryouts for the traveling soccer league, yay. Oh, and the baby is doing great. Things have calmed down a lot. Truly, I feel like I have a better grip on things. I've been putting most of my focus on my dad and kids to keep myself busy. Thank you, friends, for the love, support, and for checking in. Update 4. Hey everyone. I'm still getting daily messages and comments for an update, so here is what could possibly be my final one. My dad passed away about a week after my last update. I knew it was coming, but it still feels like a gut punch. Thank you to everyone who kept him in your thoughts, truly. My marriage has officially ended. Once Tyler, I believe that's the fake name I assigned to him. Please don't call me out if it's not. It's been a while. Discovered just how serious I was about leaving him. He became compliant and was willing to give me everything I asked for in the divorce. So my lawyer opted for a dissolution versus divorce. The process is a lot quicker and goes smoothly. As of right now, I have full custody while he works out his anger management and whatnot with therapy. I'm not sure if I'll ever trust him again with the kids, but I'm also in therapy, as are my kids. I'm not making any decisions at all right now when it comes to that. He gets supervised visits at a facility where there is an army of staff and security, and someone is there at all times. That's once a week, and he does get video calls twice a week. The kids are adjusting pretty well. There are days when I think it affects them more, but they've suffered some big losses, so it's to be expected. I did decide to give the baby my dad's first name, though it just felt right. But the baby is doing so very well and is thriving despite the amount of stress I've had going on. I'm managing as best as I can with everything going on. I miss my dad like crazy, and I'm still trying to figure out how to exist in a world where he doesn't. The grief still is so very heavy. I'm still mourning my marriage as well. I don't regret leaving him, but it still hurts me deeply. However, I'm picking up the pieces and making my life whole without him. My mother-in-law, well, XMIL now, I guess, I don't know, it still feels weird, and Angie helped me out so much. They've really allowed me to lean on them in these moments, whether it be taking the kids for a little while or cooking dinner for us when I don't have the energy. I truly am so lucky to have them. And finally, to what you all have been waiting to hear about, Jake. Jake is now back in California. He tried extending his leave, but the military said no. It was truly wonderful having him there and helping me in the first few days after my dad's passing. He picked up so much slack for me that I will truly never be able to repay him for it. He is so patient and kind. That being said, nothing has happened between us. Though he did hold me while I broke down after the kids went to bed quite a few times. But that's the extent of it. No kissing or anything like that. He does call me and text me multiple times a day. Right now, I just don't have any room in my life for romance. I have so much grief, and the weight of being a single mom has been heavy. He hasn't pushed me on it either. He let me know that he meant every word he said and that he's willing to just be my friend until I decide I want more. If I ever decide I want more with him. I wish I could be the girl that jumps in with both feet, but the betrayal from my ex is still fresh, and I'm worried I would burn anything out before it started. So I asked for friends and time to process everything else in my life before I even consider processing a new relationship. He happily agreed. Oh, and Tyler and Jess are not a couple. Most of you were right, he left her high and dry. Though I don't wish misery on anyone, I'd be lying if I didn't say I get the smallest amount of satisfaction that her life went up in smoke. She's been blacklisted from her family, and I know a lot of you said it's weird that her parents did that, but if you guys knew just how deep my bond went with that family, it wouldn't seem weird at all. Angie is like my other mom. She gave me the safe sex talk, the period talk. She listened to me cry about the boys who broke my heart. She held my hand while I delivered my kids. When she talks about me, she calls me her daughter. She knew my mom for practically her whole life. She held my mom's hand when she delivered me, and if anything had happened to both of my parents, she's who I would have gone to live with. My parents had that in their will. So with all of that being said, please just be kind to me in the comments. I put this off for a few days because of how hostile some people were, and the prospect of being called a liar doesn't sound too appealing at the moment. Again, I can't thank you for the amount of light and love I've received from you. I promise I read every comment and message. I just haven't had the capacity to respond. You have really helped brighten my days with all of your words of encouragement. I appreciate you all. I am so lucky to have an army of internet friends. You guys are the best. Now on to the next story. Story 10. Golden child sister announced her pregnancy at my wedding after I said no. Now my parents are taking her side and I'm being pushed out of family dinners. I, F30, got married last weekend, and it was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, but drama unfolded, and now my family is split in half. I need to know if I'm the a-hole or if my reaction was justified. Backstory. My younger sister, F27, let's call her Lucy, has always been the golden child of the family. She's smart, beautiful, and has always been the center of attention. Whether it's her birthdays, graduations, or other significant life events, I've always felt like I was living in her shadow. But I've never said anything because, well, she's my sister, and I love her. Lucy got pregnant a couple of months ago, and while I'm genuinely happy for her, I was also relieved that my wedding day could finally be about me for once. No one overshadowing me, no unexpected news. Just me, my partner, and our big day. A week before the wedding, Lucy called me, and during what I thought was a casual sisterly chat, she drops this bombshell. Wouldn't it be amazing if I announced my pregnancy during your reception? It would be such a surprise. She went on to explain that all of our family would be there, and she thought it would be such a special moment for everyone. I was stunned. I told her politely but firmly that I didn't think it was a good idea. I had spent months planning this day, and I wanted it to be about my husband and me, not a pregnancy announcement. Lucy said I was overreacting and being selfish. She said it wasn't a big deal and that everyone would be so happy. I reiterated my stance. No announcement at my wedding. I thought that was the end of it. Fast forward to the reception. Everything was going beautifully. I was having the time of my life until I noticed Lucy looking a bit smug. That's when she tapped her glass for attention. My stomach dropped. In front of all our guests, she stood up and announced her pregnancy anyway. The room erupted in cheers and congratulations. I was frozen in shock. Felt like a dream. People immediately swarmed her with hugs and questions, and suddenly my wedding was no longer about me. It was about Lucy and her baby. I was furious. My husband could see it, my bridesmaids could see it, and honestly, anyone paying attention could see I was upset. But I didn't want to cause a scene, so I left the reception early, crying in the bridal suite. My husband tried to console me, but I was heartbroken. Now here's where things get worse. The next day, Lucy texted me saying I was being a drama queen, and that everyone was happy for her. My parents are taking her side, saying I should have just let her have her moment, and that I'm being immature for being upset. But a few of my cousins and friends have reached out to tell me that they thought what Lucy did was selfish and wrong. The family is now divided. Some say I'm overreacting, while others say Lucy was out of line. So, AITA for getting upset that my sister hijacked my wedding to announce her pregnancy? Update. September 5th, 2024. Hey folks, it's me again. First of all, I just want to thank everyone who commented on my original post. I never expected it to go viral, and reading your responses really gave me some clarity. I figured I owed you all an update, especially since things have really escalated since then. So after the wedding, I took a few days to cool down. I didn't want to respond to any of the family drama immediately because honestly, I needed some space to process everything. But Lucy and my parents kept pushing for a resolution, insisting that I should apologize for storming out of my own wedding and for making a big deal out of nothing. I held firm, though. I told them how deeply hurt I was, how Lucy had completely disregarded my feelings and my boundaries. I tried to explain that it wasn't just about the announcement. It was about years of feeling like I always came second to her. Unsurprisingly, Lucy doubled down and kept calling me dramatic and self-centered. My parents were still on her side, repeating how everyone was happy and that I should let it go. Now here's where things got even messier. My cousins and some extended family caught wind of what was going on. Thanks, social media, and the family divide has gotten even wider. One of my cousins actually called Lucy out publicly, saying what she did was attention-seeking and disrespectful. That led to a full-blown family argument in our group chat with people picking sides. The weirdest part? Some family members who initially didn't say much are now telling me they've always seen Lucy as the golden child too, and they're glad someone finally spoke up. Of course, this didn't go over well with my parents. My mom told me I was tearing the family apart and that I needed to put an end to this nonsense. But I wasn't the one who made it public, and I can't control what other people say or think. What really shocked me, though, was how my dad reacted. He's usually the peacemaker, but he straight up told me that I ruined Lucy's big moment, her pregnancy announcement, and that I'm holding a grudge for no reason. That hurt more than I expected because I always thought he at least understood where I was coming from. On top of that, my parents invited Lucy and her husband over for dinner a few nights ago, but they didn't invite me. When I asked why, my mom said they didn't want any more drama. So now, not only am I dealing with the emotional fallout from the wedding, but I'm also feeling like I'm being pushed out of my own family. I've been doing a lot of reflecting, and honestly, I don't think I can keep pretending everything's okay just for the sake of keeping peace. I love my family, but I can't keep sacrificing my feelings and self-respect just to avoid conflict. My husband has been super supportive through all of this, and he's encouraged me to set clear boundaries with both my sister and my parents. So, as hard as it is, I've decided to go low contact with Lucy and my parents for now. I'm not cutting them out completely, but I need space to heal and to figure out how or if I want to move forward with them. Some of my cousins have reached out to say they support me, and that's been a huge comfort during all of this. Relevant comments, where OP has replied. Commenter 1. Absolutely NTA. I always hate suggesting LC or NC, but to be honest, it sounds like the only option in this scenario if you wish to keep your self-respect. What Lucy did was terrible, and the way your parents are taking her side is equally horrid. I would get closer to your cousins. They seem like your real family. OP. Thanks for the support. I agree, low contact seems necessary to keep my self-respect. Lucy's actions hurt, and my parents siding with her made it worse. I'll definitely focus on my cousins who've been supportive. Appreciate your advice. Commenter 2. NTA. Your sister is a self-centered and your parents obviously prefer her over you. All three of them are, and when they're ready to take accountability, then you can rekindle the relationship. Until then, ignore them and enjoy your new marriage. Commenter 3. NTA. Send her the bill for the wedding since it was her big moment. Now on to the next story. Story 11. Brother invited my ex who cheated on me to his wedding, then demanded me to pay $25,000 for it when I refused. My family called me selfish, so I'm going on a luxury cruise instead. So, here's the situation. My 28M younger brother, 25M, is getting married soon, and I was excited for him until I found out he decided to invite my ex-girlfriend, 27F, to the wedding. Now, let me give you some background. We broke up over a year ago, and it was pretty rough. She cheated on me with his best friend, and it took me months to get over that betrayal. When I found out she was invited, I was furious and reached out to my brother to express my feelings. I told him that I would not attend if she was there. Instead of being understanding, he got defensive and accused me of ruining his big day. He insisted that he wanted her there because they've become friends since the breakup and that she's changed. I told him that if I'm not welcome, then I won't be attending and therefore, I won't be covering my share of the wedding expenses, which I had already agreed to pay before the invitation fiasco. Now my family is pulling me in every direction, saying I'm being petty and ruining my brother's wedding for no reason. They're calling me an unholy for not supporting my brother and for potentially putting a financial strain on his wedding plans. Some even suggested I should just suck it up and attend for the sake of family. I've now decided that I'm not paying for a single thing and that if he wants to have a wedding with my ex as the guest of honor, it's on him to cover the costs. Am I the unholy for standing my ground and refusing to fund my brother's wedding under these circumstances? Additional information from OP. OP. Just to clarify, I'm not upset about the wedding itself, but about the fact that he invited someone who hurt me deeply. I feel like my feelings don't matter to him, and frankly, I'm tired of being the one expected to just roll over. Update. September 8th, 2024. Okay, so I wanted to update everyone because things have escalated, and it's even crazier than I expected. After my last post, I thought maybe my family would come around to my way of thinking. Instead, they absolutely lost it. My brother called me crying, saying I'm ruining his happiness, and my parents have taken his side 100%. In a fit of rage, I ended up posting screenshots of our conversations in our family group chat. You know, the ones where he called me selfish and petty? Yeah, I regret that decision, but it felt like a let's air this dirty laundry moment. My extended family saw the texts, and now half of them think I'm justified while the other half is calling me the family villain. To add fuel to the fire, my ex-girlfriend reached out to me directly. She said it's unfair that I'm acting like she's some monster when I should just be mature about the situation. I told her she would always be a reminder of my brother's betrayal and that I won't ever see her in a positive light. She then had the audacity to say my brother might reconsider his whole wedding if I'm not there. Now my parents want us to have a family meeting to discuss this drama like we're some sort of reality TV show. I told them I'm not showing up if it's just going to be him whining while my ex is basking in it all. Call me dramatic, but this whole mess has made me feel like I'm in an episode of a soap opera. So now I'm considering throwing some cash into the mix for an epic weekend getaway instead of funding his wedding. His wedding is becoming about my ex and not about him. Honestly, I feel justified in saying no. I'm still standing my ground, but part of me is genuinely worried this might tear my family apart. Additional information from OP. OP. Just to clarify, I'm not trying to ruin my brother's happiness. It feels like everyone is more concerned about my ex's feelings than mine. I'm genuinely confused about why my life choices are being judged when his choices directly impact me. I made reservations for a cruise and will be away during all the drama. Honestly, I think it's the best way to escape this mess. OP on what he plans to do with the money now. OP. Thank you. I'm really excited to leave the drama behind. I'm cruising to the Great Barrier Reef in Australia, and I've heard the diving and snorkeling there are incredible. The vibrant coral reefs and marine life look absolutely stunning. Have you ever been there? Does the fiancé know about his brother's history and the cheating incident? OP. The fiancé doesn't know yet. I haven't said anything to her because I think it's up to my brother to decide how and when he wants to reveal his history to her. Maybe he wants to wait until after he marries her. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.